Wow, it has been quite a long time since we released a podcast episode, and I am sorry about that. We've had numerous technical difficulties. We recorded a good one and the audio was messed up. Then we were booked in to do another one, and unfortunately Pete couldn't make it. Just one thing after the other. So I thought I'd better get an episode out to you. So fair warning, it's a little bit different, this one. The first section is just me answering listeners' questions. So I put a post up on Instagram and Facebook, which is where I put a lot of announcements, just asking, what do you want to hear covered? Lots of people submitted questions. And basically, the first section is me reading through these questions and answering them. We cover a wide range of topics, many of them quite thought-provoking. So you might want to listen to that. You might want to give it a swerve if you just hate my voice, which I wouldn't blame you for. So that's the first kind of half of the podcast. The second half, I also put a post out on Instagram and Facebook and said, look, does anyone want to ask me a question live on a call? So Ian took me up on that offer. Ian's a long-time listener. And actually, it turned out to be a bit more than a 10-minute question, which is what I thought it would be. It turned into, I think it's about 40 minutes odd. And it's which is absolutely fine. It's a pleasure chatting to Ian. Lots of different tangents, as you can imagine. But Ian asks me a few questions about some of the products that I'm producing and why I produce certain things and how I develop things. We also talk about Scottish carp angling, and he talks about psychology. We meander through several different topics. And talking of products, if you haven't seen already, and if you don't follow us on Instagram or Facebook, you won't have. So perhaps if you don't follow us, you might like to, because I put a lot of announcements out on there. I've knocked up some very special hook baits, limited time only. There's a set amount that I've made, and there'll be no more produced. And these are my tried and trusted recipes that I've been using for donkey's years and have caught me so many incredible carp throughout my carping life. Real kind of banker pop-ups, I would call them, ones that you can rely on. So there is a plum and crab one, which is in like a real nice washed out pink. There's loads of other goodies in the back end of that, so to speak. Scopex and black pepper is another one in a nice kind of dull yellow. And then in like a kind of reddy lava kind of color, there is pineapple and embutyric acid, along with another carboxylic acid, which is a little bit different from your standard pineapple and MBA, but just very, very effective. So yeah, if you want to take advantage of those, go ahead to our website, optibaits.com, optibaits.com. I've actually just updated the website, so it should be a little bit more user-friendly. So go and have a snoop around that if you haven't done so already. And yeah, take advantage of them. Actually doing a bundle deal where you can get all 3 pots for a reduced price. So go ahead, check them out, optibaits.com. Lastly, of course, this podcast is supported by the awesome BP Milling, who I'm sure you've all heard of, but they make incredibly sustainable fish feed and run a truly excellent YouTube channel. Ben, the main man at BP Milling, just did a fascinating video and very entertaining video, I must say, on algal blooms. So definitely go ahead and check that out. Subscribe to his channel for future goodness. His videos are all based around what's happening in the current fishing season. So it's really quite interesting, and I'm sure it will help you put some extra fish on the bank. So go ahead, check out BP Milling on YouTube. Just search BP Milling on YouTube. You'll find it. Some great content there. Make sure you subscribe. I know he's got some really cool videos coming out as well pretty soon. So you'll want to take advantage of those. That's it for the intro. Let's jump in to this episode. As I said, a little bit different from normal. You've been warned, but I hope you enjoy it nonetheless. Right, folks, before I start answering your questions, I will paint a picture as to what I'm doing and where I'm at. I am by a lake, but it started hammering it down. So I've decided to run and take cover in my car. I'm not doing a night or anything like that, so I don't have a brolly set up. I'm just sort of stealing a few hours, and I've been fishing for about 2 hours, done some stalking, going to record this podcast, and then hopefully get out on the bank for another hour or so before it gets dark, and hopefully catch a carp. I've actually had one already, which I'm absolutely chuffed with. This is a low stock lake, so to catch one stalking is pretty damn good going, especially after only a few hours. So I'm really happy with that. Hopefully I'll have one after I record this podcast. I am drinking. I am having a tipple of the episode. I'm having a few actually because I'm not driving today, so make the most of that. I'm about 3 Heineken deep and 1 Madri. This is like a new beer. Well, I don't know if it's new, but I've never seen it around before. I've started seeing it. So I've had 3 Heinekens. I'm on a Madri at the moment. I've got a few more Madri and a few more Heinekens. So yeah, I'll be well lubricated for this, I'm sure. As I've said, before anyone picks me up on it, I'm not driving. So, you don't need to message in angrily. I don't drink drive. Don't agree with it. So don't worry about that. Right, let's get going into these questions. I probably won't get a chance to answer them all. For those of you who don't know, these questions have been submitted through our social media. So basically, sometimes what I'll do is I'll put a story out on Instagram usually, which will go to Facebook as well, I think. And I'll just say, oh, we're recording an episode, what do you want us to cover? And then people can comment and ask us questions and we can cover them. That's how it works. So if you don't follow us already, then make sure you do. Instagram is where I'm most active. Right, let's jump in. So, first question, how much do carp anglers overthink things? I would say a lot. Well, do you know what, actually? I would say a lot, but then I would say also not enough. I think in some circumstances you can definitely overanalyze and obsess about things that probably aren't as important as they are made out to be in your head. But I think other times, to be honest, I think anglers don't think about things enough. It depends on the angler, of course, but a lot of people, and I try not to fish these venues, but a lot of people will go to a busy venue and sort of put a bucket behind someone who's fishing, wait to slot in that swim, ask them how they've been fishing, ask what's working on the venue, what's been coming out of where. I'm not knocking that, by the way. Absolutely crack on. If that is your thing, then go ahead and do your thing. It's not for me. But I would say those anglers are probably not thinking about things enough on their own. They're just taking the information available and then using it. And you could you could extrapolate that out through all of angling. Bait would be a good example. How many people just buy bait blindly and don't really think about what's in it and the application towards their water? They've just heard it's a good bait, it's catching fish, and that's that. And that's, do you know what? I'm really contradicting myself here, but that's probably enough for most scenarios. But sometimes, let's say you're targeting a particularly tricky water, you might need to do something a little bit more creative with bait rather than just use the bait that you're dead confident in. And don't get me wrong, that obviously always go with what you're confident in. There's a few boilies I'm really confident in. Of course, that's my go-to. Sometimes you need to think outside the box. And I think anglers are often guilty of not thinking for themselves and not willing to take risks, not willing to think of something outside of the box, have an idea, have that little spark and actually run with it, test it out and see if it works. A lot of the time, of course, it won't work, but then every now and then it will work really, really well, and obviously it will pay dividends back. So yeah, I would say both. To answer that question, the question was how much do carp anglers overthink? I would say on some occasions too much, on some occasions not enough. Next question, base mixes, please. Do you know what? We are going to do an episode on that. We are going to dedicate, me and Pete, we're going to dedicate a whole episode to purely formulating a base mix. We're not going to pre-plan it. We've said this to each other, you know, we're not going to go in with any preconceived ideas. We're literally just going to have a chat between us and come up with a base mix on the spot. Obviously, it won't be a proven recipe, but I thought, and we thought, that would be quite a genuine way of doing it. So perhaps people can hear the logic behind making the choices that we make, and perhaps it would just help teach people a little bit more of what our thought process would be behind formulating a bait. So yeah, we will cover that in another episode. Next question, additives. I could do a podcast on additives for sure. I wouldn't know where to start, but thanks for the question anyway. I don't know how to answer that. Next question is stories of any guesting or dodgy places you have fished. Any confrontations? So many, to be honest. So many like crazy things have happened on the bank, as it has to most of us. We've divulged a few of them on previous episodes, but perhaps we'll have to do... Again, I feel like I'm not answering these questions at all. I will answer one in depth in a minute, but perhaps we'll have to do another episode where we go through all of these dodgy experiences that we've experienced, and perhaps we'll relay them all. Some of them we definitely can't. There's a few springing to mind. There's no way I would publish, unfortunately. But yeah, perhaps we'll have to do another episode like that. In fact, I think it's been a while since we've spoken about anything like that. So yeah, I'll speak to Pete and we'll see what we can do for that one. Next question, your season so far? Yeah, so slow is the answer. Wow, actually, I had quite a few fish, luckily. But slow in as much as I don't feel like I've really got going yet. I haven't been putting regular time in on the bank. It's difficult. I'm busy with my normal work. I'm also busy with OptiBaits, which is the little bait brand that I set up. There's so much testing that's going on at the minute. It's unreal. I am letting a lot of other people do a lot of the testing, which is good. It takes a lot of pressure off me. But still, obviously, I have to test a lot myself. So I've been fishing lots in terms of testing products out. But my actual... So the way I would do it... Sorry, I'm just sort of like giving a bit of background on this. The way I would do it is I would test a product or an idea or an item on like easier waters, and then if it shows good promise, then build it up. Well, actually, before I test it on an easy water, I test it in my tank and my ponds as well. If something showed promise, I'd go out and test it on a runs water, then test it on a slightly harder water, and then build it up onto one of my proper waters, which are low stock, etc. But in terms of my actual own angling away from product testing, I haven't had that much time, to be honest with you. My angling for quite a while, it's been this way, it's been very, very short. Short sessions, or sometimes stalking, sometimes I've been walking the lake. I just have a good idea of where the carp will be, so I'll chuck them out for a few hours in an area I think they'll be. That kind of angling is just more and more the norm for me, which is, to be honest, even more important that my bait is absolutely on point. So it's kind of nice, actually, in a weird way. Obviously, I'd love to be spending a few nights on the bank like I used to, but actually, I need to have everything down perfect because I have such little time available. So, my presentation has to be spot on. Obviously, my location has to be absolutely perfect. My bait has to be as good as it possibly can be for that situation. So that has meant that I've had to be really on the ball with everything, and personally I like that. Like, I like the challenge. I think sometimes carp fishing can be quite easy, if I'm honest. The only aspect of it that challenges you is the very low stock, or whatever. That's a bit of a rabbit hole, don't quote me on that one, but it's nice to have some different challenges up against me. Kind of enjoying that, but not gonna lie, it would be lovely if I could do a few nights on the bank every week. Unfortunately, I just don't have that luxury. So to sum up my season so far, it's early on in the season, early on in the year. I've had some carp that I'm very proud of catching and feel very, very, very happy to have caught. Hopefully much more to come. To be honest, I think it's going to be short sessions for me most of this year. I'm sure I'll do the odd night, maybe once a month or so, but I think in between that it's just going to be sort of 4 or 5 hour sessions as and where I can, which is good. I think it keeps the sword sharp, if I'm honest with you. But yeah, that's my season so far. Next question is your hook baits in detail, which to use, where and over what types of bait. I'll answer this fully in another episode. I'm not trying to just, fob you all off, but we are going to do an episode purely on OptiBaits for those of you who want to know the in-depth info on the products that I sell. I don't want to just seem like I'm spamming everyone in normal episodes, so I'll have a dedicated episode from that. And if no one's interested in my bait, obviously don't listen to that episode. So I will cover that just briefly for this. Which to use, where, over what types of bait. At the moment that there's 4 main hook baits that we sell. The black buku is based on our, infamous blackcurrant flavour. It's a dark bait. I'll be honest, I cannot see myself not having that on one rod for the foreseeable future. It really is that good. That's great over if you want a dark bait, you want it to be a bit more subtle, that's a great bait to choose. That being said, if you're fishing a dark bait, it's like deep purple kind of color, not really purple, that doesn't do it, it's like the color of a blueberry, really. Think of that, it's similar to that, very, very dark. But if that's over a very sandy bottom, that's actually a highly visual bait. So people forget that. People think, just what it looks like to your naked eye. Like a bright yellow one, that could be quite subtle over a real sandy lake bed. Something to think about maybe. But yeah, so in any instance that I wanted a darker bait, definitely I'd reach for them. Hands down. And it's just a phenomenal bait. I would fish that as a single. I'd fish it over bait. I would fish it over a dark bottom to blend in. I'd fish it over a brighter bottom to stick. I just... As I said, immense confidence in those black bukus. They are just ridiculously good. The Warlocks, that's our other very, very popular bait. More of a spring, summer and autumn bait. I wouldn't really use that in the winter. But just for the amount of fish that is doing, it is just ridiculous. It surprises me even. And I know how good these baits are. I wouldn't bring them out if they weren't. Because I don't need to bring any of these baits out. I'm doing it for passion and for all the reasons you'd want someone to do it for. I definitely aren't doing it for money. I just lose money in that company. It owes me a lot of money. So yeah, the Warlocks are just the fish that it's producing are absolutely phenomenal. But I would definitely say that was one for the warmer weather, or the warmer water temperatures. You can fish it as a single or fish it over bait. A good hook bait should be able to be fished on its own or over bait. It shouldn't matter. If you get extremely over flavored baits, that can be a bit of a hindrance when you're fishing over bait, just because of the contrast. But then in some scenarios that can work well. But anyway, none of our they're strong, but none of our hook baits are over flavored to that state. I would say so. Either or with that. If I was to sling out a single hook bait, it would be either the polar fruit or the tree fruit. I would happily fish them over bait. I do fish them over bait. That's not an issue at all. But yeah, as more of a single hook bait approach, I would choose the tree fruits or the polar fruits. Probably edge towards the tree fruits in the warmer water temperatures, and then in the winter I would definitely be going for the polar fruit. Very, very hard to beat in the cold water. Hopefully that helps. As I said, I will do an episode solely on all of the products that I sell, just to give everyone that sort of real in-depth info on everything. That will be coming up soon. Next question is type of bait in combination with rigs and feeding pattern, compact, spread, etc. Good question, I think. I'd like to ask you more about it and sort of really see what you mean, but I guess I'm reading between lines here, but type of bait in combination with rigs. Yeah, so I would suit my rigs. I would change my rigs to suit my baiting approach, if that makes sense. So if I want to put a load of bait in a small area, for argument's sake, or even if I wanted to fish a large area but I wanted a lot of bait there and the baits would be close to each other, generally I'd have a shorter hook length, and I'd be fishing on the deck. Maybe a wafter. I don't really do wafters, to be honest. I might, drill out a bottom bait and put a bit of cork in, but that's more unusual. Generally, I'm a bit of a simple creature. I'll fish a bottom bait or a snowman, which I guess is kind of wafts, or I'll fish a pop-up. But yeah, if I've got that kind of that close baiting spread, then I'll generally fish a bottom bait or a snowman. Then again, more often than not, actually, if I'm being honest, what I'll do is I fish weedy waters. So let's say this is all in a clear area. There's weed to the sides or a certain location near it. I'll often pop a hook bait in that weed, generally on a choddy. So it's off of the area. Ideally, what you want to do is look at your carp feed. I know you don't always have that luxury. I get that because they're fishing out further in the pond or there's no trees to climb, whatever. I get it. But if you can, and you can observe their patrol routes, because they're creatures of habit. They will often come in on a certain line to feed and then dip off another way. If you can put a bait just off of the area on one of those movement lines, then that can work very well, because maybe they think it's like a rogue bait or something, but I don't know. In my experience, that just gets taken quite well. So yeah, that's something I definitely do. So I will fish a pop-up over a tight baiting pattern. But yeah, if I'm really spreading a load of boilie around over a large area and there's decent amount of space between boilie to boilie, I mean, I must say, I think sometimes you can presume that the carp know exactly where they are, like that, and they're going to you envisage them dipping down onto each one, swimming a metre, dipping down, swimming another metre, dipping down. I think sometimes the baits aren't always as obvious as that. So that can be a problem. But yeah, over that scenario, I would probably fish a longer hook length, or I would fish a pop-up, depending on the situation. It would all depend on the situation, so it's hard to answer generally. But hopefully that answers your question. Next question, fishing lifestyle balance. Yeah, well, you tell me. I don't know. I have yet to master it. It's tough. I think, when I've been younger, I've just said sod it to everything else other than fishing and prioritise that. But now I'm getting a bit older. I'm knocking on the door of 40 now. So I'd like to think I'm a little bit more sensible. And yeah, I prioritise everything. I look at my fishing as a luxury, not a right in my life, if that makes sense. I feel like I have to earn my time out on the bank. I feel like I have to make sure I've got everything done with my work, with my home life, make sure my partner's all taken care of and everything like that. The home's all good. And then if everything is okay, then I can go out and spend time on the bank. That's the way I see it at the moment. I could do a lot more fishing, to be honest. Like my girlfriend, or fiance I should say, like, she's very supportive. She would never roll her eyes or anything like that if I said I was going fishing. But just out of respect, I make sure I handle my business before I get out on the bank. But it can be hard to do. It really, really can. Next question is, are commons evolutionarily more developed than mirrors? Oof. Good question. In fact, I've exchanged some messages with this guy, I believe. And he knows his stuff. believe he's in the BCSG, and I think he's a real thinker. But I'll do my best to answer. I'm definitely not qualified to answer this. But I would say, so what's the question? Are commons evolutionarily more developed than mirrors? I would say no. Are they more... Are they a more finely tuned bit of nature, for want of a better phrase? Are they a more finely tuned beast? Yeah, I think they probably are. But I don't think evolution always... I think first... I was probably answering this too in depth, so apologies. But I think first of all, you've got to define evolution, or at least define what angle of evolution you're looking at. If you look at wolves... and then you look at like a chihuahua, like that chihuahua has been bred and bred and bred from wolves. Eventually gets to a chihuahua because of our selective breeding, etc. I believe mirrors are of a similar ilk, although probably not as far along the lineage as a chihuahua compared to a wolf. The monks bred carp, didn't they? And they selectively bred carp to have less scales on to make it more efficient to eat them. Pretty sure that's what happened. Pretty sure that's the case. I'm definitely not a carp historian, but I believe that's what happened. So, are they more advanced or more developed? No, I would say not. I would say commons are. I would say commons are more of a primal beast, and maybe mirror carp are more domesticated. That's the way I see it. If you're looking at it through the lens of carp for food, then maybe you would say, well, mirrors are more advanced because they're more efficient for our needs. They're easier to descale and cook, etc. It depends how you look at it, maybe. Perhaps I'm reading into this question way too much. But yeah, I would say mirrors are less biologically adaptable. No, that's not the right way of saying it. Fumbling here. As I said, 3 Heinekens, fastly approaching the last little bit of my fourth Madri. So brain's probably not working as well. But I would say, I put it this way. If I wanted to be a carp, I wanted to be a wild animal that had my wits about me and I was going to survive in the very best way possible, I'd want to be a common carp rather than a mirror carp. I see mirror carp as more sort of, dumbed down versions of common carp. Don't get me wrong, please don't message in angrily. I love mirrors, absolutely love mirrors. And to be honest, if I could choose the most scale perfect mirror compared to the most scale perfect common, probably go for the mirror. Quite like mirrors, bit of a soft spot. But as far as evolution and biological function, I think common carp have the edge. Next question: additives and ingredients that you would not go without in a boilie, and why? Big question. So, is there any ingredient I wouldn't be able to not put in a boilie? No, I don't think there is. I don't think there's any one ingredient that I wouldn't be able to live without. So let's say I'm rolling a feed bait. There's lots of things I like to do, but if fish meals no longer existed, I would be very disappointed, but I could live without them. If milks could no longer exist, I'd be very disappointed, but I could live without them. So flavors even. Like, I sell flavors through OptiBaits, but even those, I'd happily roll a bait without a flavor. That wouldn't be a problem at all. Difficult question, but actually it's quite an easy answer. I would say no. There is no one ingredient that I would not be able to live without. No. No, not even flavours. I mean, flavours even. I mean, well, put it this way. I wouldn't want to have a bait without amino acids in. I wouldn't want to have a bait without organic acids in. I wouldn't want to have a bait without certain compounds in, but those amino acids, those compounds, etc., they could be found in a multitude of different products. So again, perhaps I'm being a bit too over the top with my answers here, but I think, that you can always meet your needs. Flavors again. I mean, flavors are interesting. People think, so you're using that flavor because you want it to smell more fishy or you want it to smell fruity or whatever. But actually, when you start looking at the composition of successful flavors, if you can, I mean, most people can't actually get the actual recipes for the actual flavors, but if you look at the really successful flavors, there is a theme there. And most flavors are absolutely worthless in a bait, I'll be honest with you. 9 out of 10 flavors, absolute garbage. Probably more than that, actually. That, it's not necessarily that when you include them, they're going to make the bait worse, but they're not going to enhance it at all. But there are a few flavors out there, quite a few, and they can seriously enhance any bait, whether that's a feed bait or a hook bait. Now, when you actually, peel back the layers a little bit further and you look at the breakdown, the chemical breakdown of those flavors, quite a few of them have there's a few different things that I would look for, and all of the good, very, very best flavors have these things in common. I'm not saying it's one thing, because obviously, like a good cream flavor, we sell a few, that's going to have different qualities that are making that very effective compared to, say, more of a fishy flavor like our Wizard. That's very effective as well, but it's working off a different mechanism. But yeah, as I said, there's definite patterns between there's definite patterns of these really effective flavors, and it's fascinating. It's something I could speak on for a very long time, and perhaps I need to do just like a solo episode solely on the makeup of flavors, because it is freaking fascinating. I think most people would switch off and not be interested. I understand that, but perhaps I'll do an episode for those like real sort of geeky people that want to learn about it. But yes, to answer your question, there's no one thing that I would be like, I can't roll a bait without that. No, nothing at all. Not even flavours, even though I sell them. Not happily roll a bait without flavour. Not an issue at all. As I said though, I'd be very disappointed if I couldn't have amino acids, organic acids, nucleotides, things like that in a bait. Yeah, absolutely. But you can get those from a multitude of different places. Hopefully that answers your question. Next one, what is it that inspires you to fish the lakes you do? That's a really good question, I think. It's very different from most of the questions we get. To be honest, these days, probably the surroundings, the feel of the place. I think when I was younger, it was about, obviously what's swimming in there, what carp what carp do I want to target? But now I've got a bit older. I've caught a lot of carp in my time, not as many as some people, of course, but I've caught a lot of carp. So now I value my time on the side of the lake just as much, if not more, than the actual carp I'm catching. So, I mean, that being said, I couldn't fish for carp that I wasn't drawn to. I couldn't just fish for mud pigs, even if they were in the most beautiful lake around. I couldn't do that. But in the same respect, I couldn't fish for the most amazing carp if it was in not very nice surroundings. So yeah, I like quiet places, ideally, don't we all, but ideally a lake where no other bugger is anywhere near you. You got the place to yourself. It's beautiful. There's nature abundant there. Just the feel of a place. We've all been to certain lakes, and it just kind of conjures up something in you, and it inspires you, and it just feels like an amazing place. I like to fish those lakes. Obviously, we can't do that all the time, but yeah, I would say, to answer your question, what is it that inspires me to fish the lakes that I do? The surroundings, and of course the carp. They have to kind of go hand in hand. I like fishing low stock waters for ideally, old fish that are, slightly different from the norm. That's what I like. But yeah, location is number one, I guess. Next question. Wouldn't mind knowing what's in the new dust. See how it affects my current bait. Yeah, I guess you mean the lust dust. Definitely not going to tell you what's in it. It's a complex blend, I will tell you that. It'll enhance any bait, and you can quote me on that. That lust dust will enhance any bait, whether that's, again, feed baits or hook baits. That will really bring a lot to the party. Any bait that I'd roll, I would use that in, 100%. But unfortunately, no, I'm not going to tell you what's in it. Next question, newbie guide to rolling HA pop-ups. People listening may benefit from it. Yeah, a newbie guide to rolling. Oh, high attractor, I guess that is pop-ups. Yeah, well, again, I feel like a guide would be a whole episode, but I'll give you a few key points. What would I say? Don't over-flavour them, a la John Baker. That's very much his message, over-flavouring hook baits. But at the same time, don't under-flavour them. The flavour levels on a hook bait, on a high attract hook bait, it's a funny thing. Some flavours you can actually go pretty damn high with, and other flavours you really can't. You're only really going to know that from either listening to someone else who's trialled it and they're being honest with you, or by trialling it yourself. So I just used my flavours, for example. The Strawbermo, it's very effective at low levels, but you can actually go quite high with it. Compared to, say, like our like the Wizard. That's not going to be, if you start piling that stuff in. Let's say you wanted to make high attract hook baits and you used Strawbermo at 7mm an egg. That's very strong. That would catch well. I'd probably use it a bit weaker, but it will catch well at 7mm per egg of the Strawbermo. If you put the Wizard in at 7mm per egg, you're going to be repelling carp. You're going to have to wait till that hook bait is so washed out, and by then you will have packed up and gone home. So yeah, it depends on the flavour. So don't over flavour, but don't under flavour. Whoever you buy your flavours off, speak to them. Send them an email, send them a message on social media. They should, value you enough to actually spend a bit of time with you. The only thing I would say is, ask good questions. Don't just be like, what level would you put this at? Because they're just going to give you a generic answer. But if you're like, look, I'm trying to make this hook bait, don't want to make it too weak, don't want to make it too strong. Here's the rest of my mix. Here's the kind of lake I'm fishing. What do you think? Ask a good question like that. Any brand worth their salt is going to come back to you with a detailed answer. In addition to that, what else I would say? What was the question again? Newbie guide to rolling. Yeah, as a whole guide, it's probably in its own episode, but a few takeaways. Don't under flavour, don't under flavour. Don't over flavour, don't under flavour. But also, think about the solubility. You want it to have a decent amount of solubility. So you want, it to be soluble, to break down, to leach off, be attractive. But obviously you don't want it to be too much so if you want that bait to remain intact in the water for any decent length of time. So yeah, definitely pay good attention to the solubility. I think colour is really important as well. Contrast is the key, not the actual colour that we see. It's a bit of a rhyme there. But I said this earlier, don't just think, I want a bright hook bait, so I'll sling out a yellow or a white, when actually you're fishing over real pale sandy bottom, and actually that blends in, not perfectly, but it's not going to be as obvious as, say, a black hook bait over very pale sandy gravel. So think about what you're fishing over as well. This question is specifically about high attract hook bait, so think about the colour and think about the contrast of the hook bait against the background that you're fishing it. Other than that, as I said, probably needs its own episode. Next question is, start to base episodes specialising on certain ingredients tonight. Yeast. Yeah, good idea, actually. Yeah, that is a good idea. Too late for that now, because I've already waffled on about lots of things. But yeah, I like that idea. I'll have to put that in the memory bank. I'll have to write that down. Right, next question. New flavours and levels to use at. Kind of covered that already. I will cover everything in another podcast. If anyone wants any help and guidance on, our flavours and what levels to use them at, just send the message. The more detail you can give me, the better I can answer your question, to be honest, regarding flavour levels, etc. Just find me on social media. Instagram is the best, or email us. You can find that on the website. Yeah, just get hold of us and I'll answer any questions you have the best way possible. Base mix ingredients, again, I'll cover that on another one. Preparing particles. Thoughts on fermenting particles? Yeah, I do it. I'm always in two minds about it. Most of the time when I use particles, I use them fresh these days, to be honest. I will use a bit of amylase. I've spoken about this before. Just kind of kick things off a little bit. But I'd also happily use things fresh. In terms of fermenting, I like my tiger nuts to have turned and gone all gloopy and sweet and sugary. Just to that stage before they get to the more vinegar. You don't want them at the vinegary stage. But before that, I like them like that. I think we're actually getting someone on to talk about fermentation soon. So I'll probably hang fire for that episode. But basic gist of my opinion of it, yes, I think they can be more effective than just fresh particles. But I would still more than happy to use particles fresh. Next question. New hook baits, spring tips and tactics. I'm partial to a good story as well. Yeah, I need to get some stories out. It just would feel a bit weird if I'm just, relaying some stories all on my own. I need Pete for that one. But new hook baits, spring tips and tactics. I mean, we're on the run up to spawning, aren't we? Of course, single high track hook baits work very well. But so does giving them some food, giving them a good quality bait, whether that's particles with extras added or a good old boilie. I like boilies. But make sure you're giving them the full range of nutrients. I think this is so important. It's not just about protein. Protein's a bit overrated in as much as everyone's on about protein. What about good quality fats? What about your carbohydrates as well when they want to gain weight? Carbohydrate is more important than fat. In a bait, in my firm opinion. Perhaps I can talk about that another time. But yeah, so those are the macronutrients. Macronutrients are carbohydrates, fats, and protein. Make sure you've got those in the right ratios and make sure that they are bioavailable to the carp. That's really important. That would make up a good bait at any time of the year, but I think it's especially important when those carp, they know that spawning is coming up. They know that they need extra in their body to go through the rigors of this biological strain, because it's not an easy thing for the carp to spawn. I'm not just on about thrashing around in the weed or the reeds or whatever. I'm on about it's biologically taxing. The males, their testosterone goes through the roof. They need energy to do that. They have to produce sperm, milk. Lots of things are happening to them. For the females, of course, they have to populate hundreds and hundreds of thousands of eggs, so they need the building blocks. What are the building blocks of life? Protein, fat in the myelin sheath and the cells. They need all of these different things. And of course, in addition to the macronutrients, they need the micronutrients, they need the minerals, they need the vitamins. So I would say give them something that they need. I think most animals are much more in tune with their bodies than we are. I think they seek out and they know what they need, and when they eat it, they know if it's good for them or not. So yeah, give them a good bait. That'll be number one for this time of year. Make sure you fish where they are. Probably worth saying, don't fish for carp that are looking like they're going to spawn or are spawning. Leave them to it and let them recover after as well. Really, really important. Some of us fish for very old carp, and they really need time to recover. I like this whole rule of shutting lakes for weeks and weeks. I think it's good. I think it's pretty essential, really, if we want to look after them best way possible. So yeah, that would be my last word on that front. But, well, actually, no, I'll add to that. As always, doesn't matter the time of the year. Find the fish. Like, find the fish first. I will, as I mentioned earlier, I do a lot of short sessions. You know, maybe sometimes only 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours or 5 hours. There's no point me just rocking up, lobbing the rods out where it looks good. Yep, sit back and freaking chill. Like, no, I need to be on those fish. Yes, I do that sometimes, but that's only if I've been walking the lake, I feel like I'm in tune with the lake, and I feel like I really know where the carp will be. Otherwise, I'm there, I'm walking, I'm looking, I'm climbing, and I'm just tirelessly looking for signs of carp. You must find the carp. It is the most important thing. You have the best bait, the best rig, the best everything in the world, but if you are not where the carp are and ideally want to feed, then you're just wasting your time. So yeah, I spend a lot of time on that, and that would be a tip for you. I got excited there and I've like closed everything off. Here we go, back to new hook baits. Yeah, I've done that one. Next one, nucleotides. That's all the message says. Yeah, use them. That is what I'll say to nucleotides. They're actually really fascinating, and I've started using them in single form, or playing around with using them in single form. Yeah, nucleotides, probably underrated. Probably a lot of people don't really know what they are, what they do, but yeah. If you are, I don't know who you are, sorry, I don't know if we've spoken or not. I can't get your actual name here. Just by these responses, I just get your username. But yeah, if you are into bait, then yeah, explore nucleotides. Absolutely. There is a lot of mileage in them. Next question is your thoughts on the best attractors from supermarkets versus bait firms and the carp tax. Yeah, I mean, you can make a great bait from the supermarket without a shadow of a doubt. Few things that spring to mind. I mean, Marmite, number one. I'm just going to have a swig of beer a minute. My mouth is drying out. Excuse me. Yeah, Marmite, very, very good, very underrated. Vicon as well. I don't think you can get that in supermarkets now. I mean, look, there's a whole host of things in the supermarket that is good. Sweet corn, even. Let's keep it simple. You know, sweet corn, really good bait, isn't it? It's like pretty hard to beat. I'm working on a bait, a boilie that's very effective. Very, very effective, to be honest with you. And I'm quite confident I won't go into it too much. Who knows? Maybe I'll produce it one day. It will be really expensive based on milks. But I think it has the ability to really produce the results sometimes. But, I mean, as good as I think that is, I could be outfished on sweet corn sometimes, you know, because sweet corn is just that freaking good. Or Kenny Gates rolls phenomenal baits. Huge advocate of Kenny Gates and his baits from Bait Asylum. His R1, super confident in that. If I want to fish, like that is just such a good bait. But I bet on some occasions, sweet corn will outfish it. No offense to you, Kenny, if you're listening. It's just the way it is sometimes. You don't know what the carp want on that given day. And something like sweet corn can be really good. Don't get me wrong, if I had to use one, Kenny's bait or sweet corn, I'm definitely choosing Kenny's. I'm just saying, you know, it has its place. That would be a good one. You can get brewer's yeast from the supermarket. Really, really good additive. Fish sauces, really, really good. There's lots of different things that you can get from a supermarket. I don't really know if I'm answering your question or not. Let me just read it again. Your thoughts on the best attractors from supermarkets versus bait firms and carp tax. Yeah, so I will say this. I think there's better things available from bait firms than there are from the supermarket. I'm not just saying that because of mine. Take British Aquafeeds. I don't think there's anything in the supermarket that you couldn't get the equivalent of from British Aquafeeds that would probably be better. So, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to draw parallels like that. But if I could only do one, bait firms or supermarkets, I would choose bait firms, 100%. But that being said, if you're on a budget or you just don't want to buy from bait firms, yeah, lots in the supermarkets. Crack on and yeah, you'll catch carp for sure. It's a good question. I feel like I should probably explore that more. But yeah, maybe I'll wait for Pete. He's a bit of a tight-fisted fucker, so he's probably more clued up on what's available from supermarkets at the minute. Next question. We're getting through these pretty quick, actually. There's not that much left. I'm sure you'll be pleased to know, because it's probably a little bit weird just listening to me kind of talking to myself. Next question is HNV theory is always interesting. Yeah, it is. I don't know where to go with that. I'd want to ask you, what your thoughts are and where you were coming from with that question. But yes, the HNV theory is always interesting. Do I 100% buy into it? I think you've got to define what the HNV theory is. Is it that your bait is going to be best if it supplies the carp with everything that they need? No, I don't actually subscribe to that. I think if it did provide everything that they need, I'm not saying that would be an ineffective bait. I'm sure that would be a freaking great bait. But I think you could probably better it. What am I trying to say? I think you could make a better bait that actually doesn't tick every single box that they need. And I just think it would be better through different means, if that makes sense. Beers are well and truly kicking in, by the way. But yeah, I certainly, for what it's worth, I certainly subscribe to the thought process of carp need high quality food in order to be really switched on and eat it with gusto. That being said, there's going to be some people listening. Well, you just said about sweet corn and that's not very nutritionally complete and all that. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Look, they're going to eat all sorts. They're going to eat goose shit, for God's sake, which actually is actually very, very beneficial to carp. Protein chains are broken down, etc., etc. You get my point, though. They will eat all sorts. But yeah, for me at the minute, I'm looking into like oxidative damage and different stresses that the fish experience in their lifespan, and providing them with nutrients and the tools to help combat these stresses. I find this side of things fascinating. I've never heard anyone else talk about it. I'm not saying that to say, oh, look at me, I'm way advanced. I'm not saying that at all. It's just, I think it's probably a new area that hasn't really been explored. I'm sure you'll get some clever dick bait manufacturer saying, oh, no, actually we do because, I don't think they do, though. I think they're just saying that. And what are they going to come up with? Oh, we add spirulina because, yeah, no, come on. There's more to it than that. I think there's some very interesting stuff out there. Polyphenols, antioxidants. I'll probably go into this in more depth at a later date, just because I'm still doing lots of work on it. But yeah, I spoke about this on a previous episode, but the most attractive thing I've ever put in front of a carp happened recently, and I am putting it down to the compounds that are in it. And don't get me wrong, I think, just judging by the reaction of it, the carp must have receptors that can obviously recept it and acknowledge what it is. But I just see that it's got to be also linked to what, the biological effect of this substance. It has to be. It just has to be, in my mind. Again, I might prove myself wrong, or I might just be wrong. But this substance is ridiculously attractive to carp, to a ridiculous point. Me and Pete have spoken about this a little bit before. Obviously, we use it in a few of our products. But yeah, I just see that has to be tied to these substances that I've just spoken about, and the carp knowing what is good for them, and probably crying out for certain, gene repair, cell repair, just because of the way that they live. So yeah, anyway, we'll probably get a little bit too deep there, but yeah, I buy into the whole HNV thing. I just think maybe there's different ways to interpret it. Next question. Do you rate the beef liver powder that AA Baits sell? It's spray dried, I believe. Is it worth using? I did not know that AA Baits sold beef liver powder. If they do, they should be saying that it's just for hook baits, because you can't actually use you can't use beef products as feed for fish in this country. So yeah, I don't know. Do I rate beef liver? Yeah, absolutely. I think it's freaking a very good ingredient. Get a good quality beef liver powder. Yes, very, very good. Hydrolyzed beef, superb. But I have no experience with the AA Baits one, so I couldn't comment, to be honest with you. Apologies about that. Test it out. Let the Carp tell you. That's what I would say. Or send me some. I'll probably look them up. I'll probably order some, actually, and I'll test it out. Maybe ask me again at a later date. Next question. What's the upper limit of soluble ingredients you can get away with in a base mix before it doesn't roll? Depends what else is in it. So if the rest of the mix is packed out with very hygroscopic ingredients, or ingredients that are basically going to allow you to get away with more solubles, then you're obviously going to get away with more solubles. So yeah, there is no set number. There's no set percentage of the mix that you cannot exceed. It would depend on the rest of the mix. And then to a degree, it will depend on boiling time, air drying time, etc. Percentage of eggs. I say percentage of eggs because most of us add a lot of liquids to the eggs nowadays. Obviously that, depending on what you're adding to the eggs, most of the time it's going to reduce the binding capability. And yeah, there's so many variables in there that, unfortunately, that's a hard question to answer without a bit more context. So yeah, hopefully that answers it enough though. Next question. When creating a milk protein base mix, what ingredients and percentages? Good question, but I'm not going to just give away my mix to you, because I'm working on a milk protein right now. So yeah, bad timing for you, unfortunately. Sorry, but obviously I don't want to give away too much. But let's see what I can answer. What ingredient milk protein? What ingredients percentages? There's some milks that I think you really want in there. WPC80 would be one of them. Calcium caseinate would be another one. Personally, I like rennet casein as well. Lactalbumin. If you could get the proper lactalbumin, then yeah, I would have that in there. But the fact is, you can't. There are bait companies now. You go on their website, look for lactalbumin, you'll find it. And I get messages all the time about lactalbumin. Do you rate this lactalbumin? Do you rate that one? The answer is no, I don't. Yeah. If you want to actually find out how much proper lactalbumin costs, go onto the Sigma Aldrich website. It's I don't know, £1,000 for 50 grams or something ridiculous. It's probably not quite that much. But it's a lot. It is a lot. So yeah, unfortunately you cannot get proper lactalbumin as we used to know it anymore. It's just not available. But if it was, then hell yeah, I would be using that stuff. I just won't use it at the just ridiculous price that it's at. But yeah, go with your rennet. Go with your calcium caseinate, go with your WPC80, go with, lower level of hydrolyzed milk as well. Go to myprotein.com. They'll sell a good hydrolyzed milk powder. Start with those, play with the levels, get the carbohydrates in there as well. Get a little bit of honey. Seems to work very, very synergistically as well. Good quality honey. Really enhances a mix. I'm learning more and more about honey all the time, but in a good quality milk protein bait, just from what I'm seeing, I think honey really does enhance it And I've been using honey for quite a long time. I spoke about it briefly on the John Baker podcast. I think I spoke about it with him more off air, but funnily enough, I'd been doing a lot with honey. John had been doing a bit with honey, and it's interesting stuff. Manuka is great. I use Manuka in Opti baits, in our hook baits. It's expensive to get the very good quality stuff, but it's worth it. But you don't even need to use that. Just get a good quality raw honey local to yourself. And yeah, I would say good addition to a milk protein bait. As I said, get your carbohydrates in there as well. Well, obviously you've got sugar in the honey, that is carbohydrate, fructose, glucose. But yeah, get your other carbohydrates in there as well. Bread will work well in there as well. I know people shit over breadcrumb in baits. Actually, it can be very functional. It can serve a good purpose. And yeah, I would have breadcrumb and honey in a very high milk protein bait and some other things. And yeah, as I said, I don't want to give the game away too much, but it's not always the most expensive ingredients that really make a big difference. I will say that. I know I've just mentioned Manuka honey, which is bloody expensive, and the milk proteins, they're expensive. I get that, kind of contradicts myself. But yeah, just look at the bigger picture. That's what I would say. It's probably all I want to give away right now. I'll probably go into it a bit more. I'll tell you what, actually, when me and Pete come on an episode to formulate a base mix, I'm sure we'll do a milk protein one. So I'll probably answer this much more efficiently in that episode. Just going to swig on my beer once more. Sorry, it's probably like a real faux pas. It's probably like going against podcast etiquette for me to be knocking back a beer like whilst I'm on a solo episode. So you have to sit there and listen to me drinking, which I'm sure sounds disgusting. Just cracking another beer. Apologies about that, but I've got to stay lubricated, right? Just opened up another Madri, so I'll get that going, and I will lead on to the next question. I don't want to, by the way, normally I'd edit shit like this out, but tight on time, so I won't be editing this, so unfortunately you just got to listen to me swig beer in between these questions. The next question is, again, fermenting particles. Is this the way to go, yes or no? So another question on particles. Yeah, it can be. As I kind of answered this before, yeah, it can be the way to go. It can really switch the carp on. I actually know a very good angler who pretty much exclusively fishes with fermented particle. Doesn't really use much else at all. And he catches a lot of fish. I think he's a very good angler anyway. I think you could give him a pretty average bait and it'd still catch a lot of fish. But yeah, I think there's something in the fermenting. As I said though, happy to use fresh. I like groats. Not many people use groats anymore, but groats and peanuts, that's a very good combination. That's hard to beat in the right situation. But I'll use those fresh. I'm happy to let my peanuts turn a little bit. But compare that to something like tiger nuts. I like them gloopy. It's just the way I do. Pigeon conditioner, you know, I like that a little bit older rather than fresh. But again, I'll use it fresh. Perhaps we'll do a podcast on this. Recently I've got a fair few questions about fermenting particles. And I don't know why. Obviously, I've had 2 questions on this podcast. I had some people message in about it as well. I don't know if there's something out there in the media at the minute. There must be. But it seems to be getting a bit of interest at the minute. So it's interesting. Next question is, on top of the silt, away from the silt, or deep in the silt? Depends on the situation. I will happily chuck a rig right in the silt, in deep silt, if I think the fish feed there. I mean, I used to fish a lake back in Cornwall, and the carp, there was kind of more gravelly areas of the lake, there was weedy areas of the lake, and there was more like silt gullies. There isn't lots of lakes, but there was a lot of silt in a certain area of this lake. It was quite unique in that aspect, really. I know some lakes have a lot more silt in certain areas. I'm not saying that, but the lake was quite unique. Some of those fish clearly fed in the silt a lot, and they had stained lips, and inside of their mouth was stained, I believe from the silt, and you could tell which ones fed in the silt and which ones didn't. So yeah, I will fish in the silt. I'll fish in deep silt if I think they're really getting their heads in there. I'll also avoid it if I think that's the thing to do. Again, it's all circumstantial. Yeah, I don't know if that's much help to you or not. As I said, I fish in the weed a lot. I fish weedy lakes, and everyone's looking for the clear spots. Let's get 3 on the spot. Let's get the clear spots and all that shit. And I'm not meaning to mock them. That's a bit mean, but I get why they're doing that, because a lot of fish get caught like that. But fishing, be confident fishing in the weed or fishing in the silt. Go against the grain a little bit. As long as the rig is presented in a way that isn't going to, terrify the carp. If they have to like run their face over your main line in order to find your rig, probably not going to end well for you. If they can't suck the actual hook and the bait into their mouth, excuse, that was a car just going past, I don't know if you hear that. If they can't actually get it in their mouth because it's tangled up in weed, it's not going to go well for you. But that aside, if you can present it okay, whether it's silt, weed, whatever, then go a little bit different. Do something a little bit different from the norm. If you think it'll work, don't just do something different for the sake of it, because that's kind of stupid. Don't start fishing 10-inch pop-ups popped up off the lead 2 foot. Maybe it'll work. Probably not gonna. Probably a little bit too blatant. I don't know, actually. Maybe it will work really well. Who knows? But don't just go super different for the sake of it. But if you think there's actually some merit in it, then go for it. How many food items randomly get held up in weed dotted around the lake? Loads. How many carp just suck those odd items in, with more confidence than they would do a freshly baited spot? Some of these lakes that get fished regularly, they're small venues. Or at least the fish will stay in an area. They know what's in the area. You chuck a load of bait out, you spot a load of bait out, they come back on their patrol hour or so later. They know that's just freshly been stoved in, and maybe that's maybe not, but maybe it's gonna raise some alarm bells in them. Whereas, what about like a strategically placed single bait in the weed on a patrol path? Do you not think that's going to get taken a little bit more confidently because they're used to seeing baits popped around? It's just a different scenario for them. Obviously you want to conceal your line the best way possible, etc. But if you can get away with it, I think there's a lot of mileage in that, and that's why I spend a lot of time doing it. And again, as I said earlier, I don't have much time now. I don't have enough time to fuck about and get it wrong. So I'm only doing things that I really truly believe will get me a bite, and obviously, that's why I'm sharing that piece of advice with you. I think it makes a big difference for me. Right, next question. Let me have a bit more beer. I went so long without having a sip of beer, just like answering your questions non-stop, and it just really dried my mouth out. And now I feel like I'm overcompensating for it. A little bit more beer. Next question. So, next question is, you can only fish over bait. You can only fish over bait for the rest of your life, or you can only fish single hook baits for the rest of your life. What do you choose? And which type of choice do you make? As in baits, and then the message cuts off. Okay, so I think he's asking, what would I choose? I could only fish single hook baits, or I could only fish over bait. And then, depending on my answer, I think he wants to know what particular choice I'd make. Okay. God damn it. That's a fucking horrible question. Only fish single hook baits or only fish over bait? I mean, the little clever dick in me would say, well, how much is over bait? Because that could be 10 kilos or that could be a tiny little, stringer or something. But let's just say you mean, a decent amount of half a kilo or more. Oh my God. Ooh. I would, I suppose fish over bait, I guess. Painfully have to say that, purely because I do a lot of stalking, as I said. A lot of short session angling, so I'll get to the lake, I'll walk around, I'll look intently, but I'll try and find the fish, but I'll also prime a few spots in the margin. So obviously take bait with me. A likely looking spot, I will put a bit of bait in, walk around, put a bit of bait in another spot, and I'll go do the rounds. And the amount of times that you walk back around and there's a carp on your spot or near your spot, and then okay, right, there's carp there. Is that a carp I'd like to catch? Yes. Okay, then I'm going to go about, maybe putting more bait in, maybe not, but setting my trap and trying to catch it without it knowing that I'm there. Is it a carp I don't want to catch? Well, then I need to make the call, well, is there another carp near it that I probably want to catch or not? If not, then I'll go somewhere else. Anyway, you get the idea. But a lot of my angling is spent, priming spots. So I would have to say fishing over a bait rather than fishing singles. And I think he's trying to ask, Instagram only gives you a certain amount of room and the message cuts out. I cannot read what else you've written. But I think you're asking, what would I use? So if it was singles, what single hook bait would I use? If it's bait, what bait would I use? God damn it, again, that's difficult. What bait would I use for stalking if I could only use one? I would choose a boilie because I could fish it as a boilie. I could fish a boilie on the hair if there's nuisance species. But I could also break it up into, so it's kind of like ground bait or like a powder mix. Or I could, break it up in small pieces so it's like pellet-sized pieces. I just think a boilie is versatile, isn't it? Whereas like a pellet, I'll stalk with pellets a lot. Or, ground bait. I'm developing a few ground baits at the minute. They're ridiculously good. But they're not as versatile as a boilie. A boilie you can make boilies into ground bait. You can break them up small, so they're kind of like pellet size. You can do so much with them. So yeah, if I had to choose, I would choose fish over bait, and I would choose a good quality boilie. If you're going to ask what boilie would that be, well, I fish all year round. I love my winter carp fishing, so a good quality. Oh fuck me, yeah, it'd be difficult. A good quality. Fairly rich carbohydrate based bait with low level milks and a bit of pre-digested in, probably, but I probably need to expand on that a bit more. But yeah, that's the kind of bait I'd probably go for, purely because I enjoy fishing all year round. So another kind of facet of my angling is I do bait up areas, I do stove the bait in, I do get carp on my bait. I think that helps as well, and I'd want a boilie I could do that with. So yeah, anyway, hopefully that answers the question. So next question is, have you ever used honeybee pollen in your fishing? What are your thoughts on it? No, well, not to a degree that I feel I could sit here and, talk about it with authority. So no, at this stage, yes, I have used it. I don't think I don't think I'm in a position to really spill too much on it, because I haven't used it enough. That's not because it's like a secret thing I'm working on. Definitely not. But I just think, I'm probably not probably not experienced enough in it to really comment on it. But I think it's an interesting thing for sure. Right, next question. I think there is 2 more questions. Okay. Oh no, there isn't. Okay. Oh no, sorry, I've paused this up. I've gone back to the beginning. Right, okay. Next question is, right. Oh, again, tips on fermentation. E.g. getting tigers gloopy as fuck. Analyze. So, analyze. Okay, what do you mean? Tips on fermentation. Well, you keep them warm. Yeah, again, we're going to do an episode on fermented particles and things. So I'll probably save it for that. Analyze. I don't know if this guy means amylase. I've spoken about amylase a bit before. Yeah, I use it. Amylase is an enzyme. It's a carbohydrate splitting enzyme. Excuse me, a bit burpy. And yeah, it's not going to directly ferment the material, the particle, but it's going to split it's going to break up the carbohydrate chains, and then therefore they could be fermented more efficiently, I guess. All it's doing is turning starches into sugars, but then obviously sugars are poignant in the fermentation process. So yeah, in a roundabout way, amylase is going to help that process. But don't think adding in amylase, if he means amylase, I don't know if he means amylase or analyze, let's just presume he means amylase. Don't think that just chucking some amylase in your bucket of groats is going to mean that it's just going to ferment straight away. It doesn't work like that. It's a process, but it's a key process in the breaking down of it. Now, why is fermentation potentially a good thing? Because compounds are broken down into more singular compounds, which some would say are easily, it's not a word, but more easily detected by carp, or more attractive to carp, and they're going to be picked up on more efficiently, with more favourability, and they're obviously going to get fed upon more efficiently. That's basically it. That's basically why people want to ferment things. They think it's more attractive. There's a lot of people on Facebook, in these Facebook groups, that they create their own quote unquote hydros. People going mad for this. Now, I'm not poo-pooing those people. I don't want to offend anyone. I think it's great you're so passionate, but you're not creating hydrolysates. You're kind of fermenting things, and that's that. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm sure some of them are very good. There's a Facebook group with a lot of bait enthusiasts on called Homemade Bait Buffs. And I tried to, when I very first joined a couple of years ago now, I saw this this homemade hydro shit, and I immediately realised, well, then this is not what they think it is. Tried to put that point across, fell on deaf ears, offended some people. A few people were quite rude about it, because obviously they're very passionate about their homemade hydros, but really what you're doing is you're fermenting stuff, boys. I said this ever since I joined these groups, and we've had a few guests on since that have agreed with me. But nonetheless, yeah, probably worthwhile doing. If it's ultimately, like Bill Cottam always says, let the carp tell you. Or was it Bill or was it Dean Towie? One of those two people. Let the carp tell you. Let the carp tell you what is working. And does it really matter? If you're a real science guy and you need to know why, then yes, it matters. But if you just want to put more fish on the bank, does it matter that your homemade hydro, is it a hydrolysate? Yeah, possibly technically, but is it a hydrolysate in the way you're thinking of? Probably not. But if it's working for you and it's making you catch more fish, does it even matter? No, it probably doesn't. That is what I would say. I don't even know if I answered that question. I can't even remember what that question was, to be honest. Let me go back, make sure. Tips on fermentation. Yeah, okay, yeah. So hopefully I've answered that. Folks, I think this is pretty much it now. The last question isn't really a question, it's more of a statement, so I won't cover that. I'm feeling the beer has got to me. I'm definitely feeling it, so I think I'm going to round it up here. As I said, bit of a different episode, a bit weird. It's just me on my own talking into the little microphone I've got here. The audio quality is probably shit compared to what it is usually. The whole podcast is probably a bit weird. If you're still listening to this now, you're probably one of the few and far between people that have like stuck this out, because I imagine this is just bad listening. But if you are listening now, congratulations. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. And yeah, we still love this podcast. This podcast will still be running for the foreseeable future for a long time. We love it. Please don't think because we haven't put an episode out for a while that we're going to give it up, or don't think because Pete isn't doing the bait side of stuff with me anymore that we're not going to continue the bait or the podcast. We absolutely are. It's just I was doing all of the bait stuff anyway, the developing and everything. Pete wasn't having as much of a hand in it as either of us wanted, and he doesn't have the time to, so it's just a natural thing. It's not that we're going to stop doing the podcast. I know some people will think, all right, well, Pete stepped away from the bait and now he's not turning up on the podcast. This is the beginning. I know that, and I know that because I've had messages like that already, but nothing could be further from the truth. It is just a case of time and circumstance. So yeah, please don't worry. We're here to stay. We will be having more episodes coming out to you in the near future. I'm not sure what they will be yet. I probably need to get back on the ball and get contacting some people that we would like to see on our show. If you have any suggestions, or better yet, you have any contacts of people that you think would make a genuine good guest, then please let us know. That's it. Stay tuned. If you want any bait, any good quality bait, any bait that's made with passion, as I said, I offer flavours, hook baits, and some other bits of powders and potions, and every single one of them is genuinely crafted with a lot of love, and I truly believe in every single one of them. So if you want to look at the products that I have to offer, go to optibaits.com. That's OPTI baits.com. Have a look at what I have to offer. If some of it takes your fancy, then go ahead, get it, buy it. Super confident in it. If you think, actually, this isn't for me, obviously, don't buy it. No hard feelings. But yeah, I hope it will help some of you put the carp of your dreams on the bank for you. That's it for this episode. Stay tuned. We will be back. Much love. Thank you for supporting us. And I look forward to chatting to you again very soon. You're a teacher, right?
Yeah, that's right. I'm a secondary school teacher. Yeah. So I teach philosophy and psychology, which is I'm at a rare advantage. I can talk about basically all sorts of stuff. The psychology is a prescribed course, but I can kind of put the philosophy of psychology behind that and explain things in all sorts of different terms. It's really quite a popular course because you can imagine people do want to learn about themselves. They're absolutely fascinated, and how does behaviour work, and why is it we do the things we do? One of my opening, we're going away off this. The nature of Carp Chronicles are tangents, and I'm just. And you know what's that? I'm going to enjoy it for what it is, because I listen to you guys, and I'm just going to get involved in it as well. But one of the first things I introduced to the psychology class, and these are almost like pre-adults, so that's like 17, 18-year-olds. Yeah. And I said, what sort of behaviour would you see when adults are filling up their petrol at a petrol station? What would be the difference? And they go through, like maybe people a bit hesitant or worried about the queue. And I says, well, what about when they're actually, putting that nozzle in, into the petrol cap? I'm going to listen back. I'm going to listen back to this salmon thing. If you keep this on,
I'll leave it in then.
what was I talking about there, and what's this got to do? And one of the things we eventually get there. I give them so many clues. Well, tell you what. I'll ask you, because you're an intelligent guy, right? What are one of the differences you could do from a psychological perspective when people are in the process of filling up their car with petrol? That's the actual putting the nozzle in, and then something happens. How could you determine behaviour there?
Right. Okay. Wow. Hang on. Slow down. What's the question? What's the question? Sorry.
The question is, how could we identify and differentiate different behaviors, when someone or when people, that's a plural, are filling up and in the process of putting petrol in their car? What would you observe? What might be a difference between people? Chris, it's like I'm
Okay.
in class. I'm in class.
You are. You are. I feel like I'm in class. I'm like transported back. Okay. Well, I would imagine some people will be intently watch it. So once the nozzle's in, this podcast is weird, isn't it? Once the nozzle's in and they're filling it up, that I would imagine some people would be intently looking at the money or the liters clicking up.
Yeah, very good.
I
Why?
imagine
Why would they do
some
that? Okay, why would they do that?
because they have a set amount they want to spend, or they're money conscious, or they're
Okay.
money subconscious, maybe.
Yeah, that's fine.
Um,
I'm just spinning out the lesson a little bit here because I'm
yeah.
thinking about what I'm doing at lunchtime. So, right now, we move on to okay, so let's differentiate a little bit. What
Yeah.
about the act of removing the nozzle? How could we differentiate in behaviors there? And this is the crucial point I work up to. And this is the sort of thing I get to talk about a lot in school.
So with the removal, Jesus, man, I don't know. I suppose,
It's
well,
not okay.
other people would have been looking off into space or thinking about things whilst it fills up. So, but at the point of removal of the nozzle,
Will I
some
give you?
people are going to shake,
Yes, good.
give it a little jiggle. I'm a jiggler for sure. I give it a
Who?
shake.
Who's going to do that?
Is it men?
Yes,
Really?
yes.
Is that where you were going with it?
Yeah, that's the observation, and I start them off with that, and I try to give them it's almost like a core behavior in
Yeah.
humans, and if they can associate with that basic, and of course they have terrible trouble, mentioning the shake part of it. You just went for it because you're just a man of the world,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's it. And
Yeah.
if we look at this, as a basic behavior, the shake of the, and I catch myself doing it all the time, mainly because I'm a bit thrifty and I want to get as much out of that nozzle as possible.
Mm,
But you
mm.
don't often see females doing it. But you're going to look for that now, aren't you?
Do you know what? Every single time I go and fill up, I'm going to be looking for that. Yeah, that's fast. So is this something that you've observed, or is there been like a study done on it?
Well, it's basically it's part of like an introduction. I do all sorts of different things as an introduction to behaviour,
Right,
all sorts of
right.
stuff. And then the prescribed course, we look at things like sleep, which I suppose will enter into your realm a little bit. Eh?
Yeah,
I look at stress as well, again into your realm. Just looking at stress responses and often like a biological or a psychological response to that. I look at conformity and obedience, which isn't really your realm. And I also look at social relationships, which is every realm as well. So, that's a sort of fascinating thing I get to do. From people who are interested in it until you give them an assessment and then it just all goes to pieces. But that's just life, that's just life.
so your students, what are most of them wanting to work in that kind of in that line of work, or is it to enable them to do different types of work more efficiently and know
Yeah,
themselves?
some do, but some come into it often because their friends have come into it, and they, what teenagers like, they're almost clinging to each other like koala bears, and but often they've got an interest in it, they've heard about it, or they've had, I've spoke to them coming up through the ranks. So we're talking about 6th-year students, which I don't know what the equivalent would be in England, I suppose. We call them 6 years. So they have like primary 1 to primary 7, and then they come in first S1, S2, and then up to S6, and then they leave at the end of S6. So, but a lot of them go on. We've got wonderful students at the moment, mainly females, who come in and they're off to do some psychology. We've got people going to be midwives, into the police, all
Wow.
sorts of works, and sports psychology. We had a guy a few years ago doing sports psychology. Well, he wanted to do sports psychology, and just to get that insight on behaviour as well. That was really helpful too.
Yeah, Pete did. I think he did sports psychology at uni. I'm sure he did, in fact.
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? There are links with your main psychology and then every sort of. I think there's a psychology of everything. There's probably, I would love to write about the psychology behind carp fishing because it's definitely there. There's certainly a philosophy. There's definitely a philosophy there. And if you start to look at the why we do it and all these different behaviors, and a lot of them are exposed in almost like we're conditioned, are heavily, I think one of the phrases I remember from one of your podcasts was heavily marketed, and that's massive psychology, so. But that's just part, that's part of my job. And I am conscious I'm doing this tangent thing and haven't really spoke about flavours or
no, it's fine. Do you know what?
not catfishing at all there,
It's fine. This is new territory for me. I've just been plowing through the questions. It's really weird just kind of talking to myself. So no, it's not an issue. Don't worry about it.
Well, I was going to just the last little bit on psychology. I was going to ask, is Pete there tonight? No.
No, unfortunately, no. Of course, you don't know this because obviously you haven't heard the intro. No, we were gonna record one, me and Pete, but unfortunately, Pete had something come up, so we couldn't do it. So I thought, do you know what? Just sod it. I'll record a solo episode. If people want to tune in, they can. If they want to give it a miss, then they can do. So no, it's just literally just me tonight.
I think you're the only podcast that gives that option. I love the fact in some of the introductions go, so if this isn't for you.
Yeah, wow. I feel like I need to warn people.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think there's anything. No, just back on the last bit of psychology, I always see Pete as the the super ego to your id. He's kind of like the Jiminy Cricket sort of character where he's the kind of one that's got the rational side of being, whereas you're quite happy just to go for it, and that's absolutely admirable. He's the one that draws it all back, but you're the one that's pushing everyone to go a little bit further. Fascinating stuff. Love it.
Yeah, we definitely got a difference. I mean, yeah, he's good. He always, he has like a rational kind of head on his shoulders and brings it back and makes it. I think he makes everything very clear for people to understand and make sure that everything's catered for. So yeah, he does his job very, very well. It's weird for us because we're just old mates. And we never thought, we'd really have any listeners, but people seem to for whatever reason, listening to it. So something's working well, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think that's your selling point. It's because most long-term anglers always have a fishing buddy, and you've taken that idea and you've basically put it into someone. It's almost like. Do you remember this guy, Chris Evans, right? Remember Chris Evans?
Yeah.
And a lot of people didn't like him, but what he created on that, what was that, TFI Friday, was it? He created this gang and people wanted to get involved in it, even though they weren't keen on him. It was like you were missing out on something. And I think that's a formula you guys have stuck to. It's almost like this little cult. It's not a cult exactly. It's almost like this little gang of. It's a strange one, and I don't think you've set out to do that.
Not at all.
It's something that has happened. It's a little bit. There's a famous Scottish band, well, they should be famous, called Belle and Sebastian, and they didn't set out to do what they did. They were really quite low key. The lead singer was quite introverted, and he was getting over all sorts of different things, and it became this almost like cult following that if you followed Belle and Sebastian, it was almost like a secret for everyone, and that's often how I see Carp Chronicles. It's almost like a secret. I don't know. Maybe you're behind this. You've read some John Fowles in your time. You're tricking us all here.
No, sadly not. Sadly not.
And the other beauty, and it just seems as if I'm, like a massive fan. But you're different. I've not heard many of the other podcasts, and I'm very selective with them. I've heard all of your stuff. I was going to say, laugh my head off because of what it is. It's like, what are they talking about now? And I've listened to it in the bath, and I've listened to it in the hot tub, and I've listened to it in my bivvy. And that's not an indication of what was going on in these locations.
I'm thinking of your nozzle now.
Oh dear! Don't get me started.
Honestly, we're just a couple of idiots that just ramble on. Anyone could do it. Anyone could do it.
We'll eventually get to this question. I know.
Let's get to the question then. What
we'll get to. Well, yeah, it was about flavours. I mean, I've been looking at I've been looking at your flavours and putting them into some of my baits, and I think the last one I was quite successful. But so my question was simply this, because I was trying to type on Instagram and then I just got fed up with that. And as you can imagine, by the amount of talk tonight, that's not going to fit into one of these silly little boxes. So it was to do with influence. Now, I know when I'm choosing a flavour to put in my bait, I've talked, I've kind of hinted upon the synergy and complementing with, base mix ingredients, liquids,
Yeah.
as well as the flavour. What is the influences you? So, and I've written, I just wrote a little list because it was more to do with how do you construct the flavours or the combinations, and
Yeah.
is it down to like experience, personal preference, taste, external influence, or old school influence? And I can read these out again if you want.
Jeez. Oh well, I don't think it would fit into any one box. I think you mean what inspires me to bring out a certain flavour?
How do you arrive? Let's talk about which one in particular. Now, I've got my own name for it. What was it you call it? Is it the Warlock you call it?
So that they're hook
No,
baits,
no, that's the bait. Is it the Wizard?
the wizard flavour. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So that's a fairly complicated flavour.
it
Okay.
is. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And it's lovely. It's really nice. So, and when that question came up, I thought that's the flavour I thought of. I could have thought of a whole load of them because I've got a whole load of them, and I'm thinking, okay, how did you arrive at that? I mean, I know how I would arrive with it, accident. But you're not doing that by accident. So, being the evil genius, sitting in your, sitting in your, sitting on the two-way mirror on the other side of the waiting room. What is it? How are you arriving at that stuff?
So that one probably a little bit different from others, actually. To be honest with you, so it's funny because I kind of answered this in a question, and I didn't answer it at all. But I said I went
Well,
off on a
I'll be
tangent.
honest. I'm sorry to interrupt, but do you know what? I'm. It's the school teacher in me. I was going to trawl all, and I know that word's not trawl in the sense of you know what I mean. But I was going to go. I was going to listen to all the podcasts again and take notes of all the times you haven't answered the question.
Do you,
Because I'm sure listeners are going, just answer the question, Sam. Answer the question. Please answer
do I
the
not
question.
answer questions?
Answer the block. Oh, honestly, do you know what? I started off with a tangent. You're queen of the tangents,
Jeez, oh, I didn't know that. See, no one's told me that, but I value
Really?
the feedback. No, I didn't know that. Well, I think I was prefacing my answer.
Oh, well, oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'll go with anyway. So earlier I went off on a tangent and I said that when you start looking at if you can get the actual chemical breakdown of flavors, there's very interesting themes as to which ones are effective. So basically, I went into that by saying the question. Apologies for everyone that's just listened to me answer this. But the question was, is there any additives that you wouldn't there's no way you'd want to roll a bait without? And I was kind of going through, I was like that no, no. Basically said no to everything, even flavors, even though I sell flavors. Personally, I'd happily roll a bait without flavors. No worries at all. And I was saying I think most flavors are pretty worthless to a mix, probably not going to make any difference. In some cases they'll make it worse. Most cases they'll make no difference. But I think there's some flavors that will genuinely make a significant difference. And I was saying that you can actually see patterns and you can kind of see why a flavor would work or why it wouldn't work if you can look at the actual breakdown of it. So I'm going somewhere with this. I'm not evading your question. Don't worry.
Okay. No. Yeah. I understand that, and I will. I will draw you back to it. Okay.
Don't worry. You don't need to.
I will. I will. I'm listening intently. So.
Go for it. Go for it. So with the wizard, it kind of came from that. So I wanted to do a fishy flavour. Took me a long time to finalise that wizard. I wanted to do a fishy flavour. There's definitely some, and I'm not going to go into them for obvious reasons. There's some key compounds within that flavour that I really wanted to be in there. So it was a case of working with some flavour houses you probably wouldn't have heard of, or most people probably wouldn't have heard of, and just kind of coming up with what would work. So that one, I guess that was the inspiration. If you were to like strip it back, what was the actual first point of creation of it? I wanted several things to be in it. It's also a slight bit of homage to an old flavour I used to use years ago, and I wanted to kind of have a bit of crossover from that, and then the spices in there. So for those that don't know, Ian has we've messaged numerous times, haven't we?
Yeah,
And I think
a
you
lot.
picked up on the spices in the smell of it. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the fishiness of it, and you want to create a fishy. I think the beauty of that, and it's, it's not a flavor I would use. I'll be honest with you, Sam. I wouldn't really call it a flavor as such. It's almost like, I don't know how you would describe it, because there's so much going on in that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the fishiness that I picked up on. It was all these, these different background. And what it gives the bait, what it gives the finished bait, is almost like this inherent taste and
Yeah.
also an inherent flavor.
Yeah.
And I'm using it as, when I make a bait, I make everything for that. I make the whole package. So I'm making hard hook baits, I'm making cork balls, the bait itself in various sizes for various reasons. And 24 hours in the water, and that bait still has, and it's not the fishiness, it's that inherent spices and whatever it is you're putting into it,
The spices actually come out more once you've started rolling it. You've probably noticed yourself.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
once you've added that to your eggs, you're mixing in some dry ingredients. That's when you kind of start smelling the spice a little bit more. And the spices are quite complex in the form of, yeah, various form, but mostly essential oils. So yeah, it is more of a taste thing, but isn't it interesting that you say, oh, I wouldn't call it a flavor, I'd kind of call it more of a taste thing, but flavor is taste, isn't it? It's
Well,
not smell.
yes. Yeah, I understand what you mean. And when I was putting this question together, because one of the things that, one of the potential answers, I'd mentioned there was, like personal preference. I
Mm.
often find that carp anglers, and I've caught myself doing it as well. Oh, I don't like coconut, so I won't use coconut flavor. Because I don't like coconut, and it's just absolutely
Yeah.
ridiculous. So I don't mean it in the sense of it is a flavor, and you sell it as a flavor, but it's doing so much more.
Yeah. Oh, it is most definitely. But I guess my point is, they're called flavors, but we all go by their smell. It's just this weird relationship we have with carp flavors, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, to
Not many
my
people taste their flavors, do they?
Yeah, I have
I
to,
bet you do. Yeah, I bet
Yeah,
you do.
I have to. And you know what? Even though I know what it tastes like, continually. And my son's recently, he comes down into the garage where I do my bait, and I'd made a bait for him for tench fishing this year. Um, and he'd want to take up tench fishing, want to do it all himself. I said, well, let me make you a bait. And I made this lovely bait for tench fishing. But every time, and you'll probably do it yourself, every time he comes in, he has to he has to taste and smell all the things. I look, have a taste of that one, have a smell.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm so enthusiastic about it, and you'll be exactly. And there'll be other bait makers, can resonate with us
Oh
as
yeah.
well. It's this, have a smell of that. Oh, I put this, I put this bait together, and all these different things. Um, just as an add-on to what you were saying there about, how you construct it, was the goal the final product, or was the goal to amass all the component parts? Did you have the product in mind that you arrived at, or was it amassing all
No.
these parts and all these, almost like that deconstruction to bring it together?
Yeah, yeah. I don't think I had like a specific idea of what I wanted it to be like in mind. And the thing is, you can put some things together and think, oh, it smells and tastes amazing, but if it's not switching the carp on in the way that you want, I mean, I could have released so many flavors that I think just smell amazing. They would sell really well because people would be, they'd be really into the smell and taste. But if it's not switching the carp on in a way that it needs to, then it doesn't mean anything. So, but I absolutely love constructing different flavors, putting different things together, seeing how it changes things. I absolutely just love it. So this isn't I don't do it because for the money or anything like that. All of the money I make, I go back. I don't pocket anything. I just literally do it because I love doing this, and that's the genuine truth.
Mhm.
Um, so
Yeah, I
yeah,
just
that one was a
wondered.
bit different. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to, and for some reason, because I'm working with that one at the moment, I picked that one because of what it is. I mean, but the bait makers will look towards the final product rather than going, yeah, I've got a bit of this and a bit of that. And I know people do that, but when I'm putting a bait together, and I put two together recently, and I'm thinking, okay, this is what I want it to do. This is what I'm going to put together. How can I complement this? How can everything just run all together? And occasionally it just all falls together wonderfully. But other times you have to tweak it a little bit. You have to do all this. The beauty of bait making, it's absolutely magnificent. I'm quite happy, but because of my time is limited going on the bank, and I think I can speak for many, many people who are doing this. It's that element of angling. Like I said, you're doing something about fishing every day. It's that way to keep in touch, and you probably got that with your flavors. Another thing is it's quite unique for somebody to come on. You've got yourself. You've got all these companies that are touting these new flavors that they have no hand in at all.
Not at all.
That's your uniqueness. It must be a case of you've got this hand in this to say I have created this.
Yeah, but that being said, I mean, I still get samples from companies. I mean, literally in front of me now, I've got a maple, which is phenomenal. And like, in a quandary, do I bring that out? Because I think it's very, very good. But then it's just going to be a bit boring. So I couldn't just bring that out to the masses.
Mm-hmm.
Just as it is created by someone else, I'd need my kind of stamp on it. If that makes sense.
You know how much I like a sample.
I could send you a sample of that. Yeah, I could do that for you.
Oh, brilliant! Thank you. No, that wasn't a hint. Well, it kind of was.
Oh, of course it wasn't.
It kind of was. Listen, this is reciprocal. If I find something wonderful,
it's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
I'll pass it on to you if you want. If you want something. I don't know what I could send you actually.
Well, you did. In fact, you see, to go back to your question, what sort of inspires me to make a flavor? I have been working on the chocolate malt that you requested.
Oh, I was going to message you about that anyway.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the bottle that you gave me.
Oh no, not. I mean, no, not at all.
I will send it back. Absolutely.
No, it's okay. Because I think if the result is something that replicates what would have been there in the first place, I did really well on that, and I've spoke to a few people about chocolate malt in the past, and I'm not happy with what they've come up with.
No.
But I did do well on it. We're talking 25 years ago, something like that. When it was proper chocolate malt. So feel free. It's yours now.
Yeah. So I have been working on a chocolate malt. I don't think I'm quite there, to be honest with you. To be totally honest, I wouldn't want to bring something out that was just a bit like, nah. I think I'm close. It's just. Plus, that bottle is old, right? So
yeah,
I'm close to getting it analysed, but things will have changed. Things will have denatured. So you if you get flavour analysed, obviously you're only analysing it in its current state. It's not going to actually give everything that was originally in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah, but it would be nice. I think it's sadly lacking. And I've seen, like I said, some chocolate malts or chocolate. No, they're just not do it. So I won't use it. But I mean, when it comes, and I know it'll come, I'll design a bit around that. I've got some ideas already.
I've got some. I can send you some samples of a few different permutations I've come up with if you want to. Again, I don't think they're ready yet.
Do you mean free stuff, Sam?
Free stuff.
I don't ever want free stuff. I also, do you know what? It's not just you. I drive Daniel Clark mad with that as well.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, I don't think I think you're unfair. You come unfair to yourself if you restrict yourself using one thing. You get people that, I'm a NutriBaits user, and I'm
oh god, yeah, because everyone's got different. Yeah, I mentioned the maple, like John Baker's maple. I really rate that very highly. I think it's very, very good.
Yeah.
Mainline pineapple, phenomenal.
Yeah. Oh, there are. You could probably cherry pick. That might be that's quite a good thing. That might be quite a good thing to do, just to help. Because I mean, you think of you must get tons and tons of questions. What flavor could I use for this time? What flavor could I use for this?
Yeah.
But when anglers are relying on flavors, rather than thinking, okay, what can I put together that will make this flavor the best it can be?
Yeah.
Because I could put together a mix. I could put together two mixes, and I know that one of these mixes is going to enhance everything with that flavor. It's going to make it. I've got this term. I call it making it sing. So I make it sing when it's out in the water. But I could also make another mix and it'd smell the same, because you talked about smelling earlier. And to the untrained eye, it would look exactly the same.
Did you yeah, most definitely. Did you get some of my lust dust? The new powder?
No, but that sounds like another free sample.
Oh, does it now? Yeah, so if you're rolling bait around the wizard,
Who's on quality control? I mean, just some sort of
I'm on quality
structure going
control.
on.
Uh,
I'm
yeah.
such a somebody today called me a hoarder, and they're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I've still got, I think I've still got the original samples you sent me, and there's one with a question mark on it that I keep looking at, and I'm going to do something with it one day. Remember, I thought it was a hieroglyph or something you'd written on the bottle.
I don't remember. No.
'Cause I messaged you, I go, why have you put a hieroglyph on the bottle? And eventually went, bloody hell, Ian, it's a question mark. And you're meant to be a teacher. And I'd go, so it is.
I vaguely remember that actually.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's just like something like that. But no, I mean, I got some of your llama dust, and that was all. Yeah, I used it in a stick mix, but if you're a bait maker worth your salt, you can make something like that. And that's no disrespect to you. That inspires people to get thinking.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's wonderful stuff. It is. It's lovely, lovely stuff, and it tastes nice as well. But if I can't make something similar, then as well as just shut
Yeah, in my opinion, the amino acids in the llama dust, I think that's what takes it to somewhere else that I think a lot of people would struggle to get there, if I'm honest. Of course, I'm going to be biased. It's sort of one of my babies, but yeah, smell wise, I mean, you'll be able to pick up on this. The overriding thing is the paprika, smoked paprika, and the cheese, which anyone you can buy products like that already mixed, in fact.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, the overriding smell of that is definitely cheese and paprika, which again, like you're saying about making ingredients sing. Some ingredients just go well together, I would say.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a major part of bait making. It's not just a case of chucking a flavour and a sweetener. I think a lot of people know that now. But I did well. I fished from and Scotland. Like I say, Scotland's hard enough for some people. Scotland's hard enough for carp fishing, but I fished through October, cold storms, everything, November as well, and I was using one of your flavours. I'm going to be vague about that. I was using one of your flavours and pop-ups and doing really well on it, but I was also using the stick, using the llama dust, and fleshing it out. And it was, I was getting a lot of action on that. And this is in the worst of weather, really, when others around me, I went on the water for the first time, and I had two fish and lost a really good fish on it. Basically instantly. And you can't argue with that. That's for me, that's trying to, but it's not good enough, because I'll have to tweak something to make it better for the next time.
I know, that's the problem, isn't it? We always want to change stuff, don't we?
It's that restlessness, it's I remember one of my pals, I've got a great pal called Stevie Walker, he's a lovely, lovely guy. And he showed me a picture of I'd seen the picture, the brace with Peter Springate. It's one of the most iconic.
Of course, yeah.
And he says, don't look at the fish. Look into that guy's eyes, he said.
Know, yeah.
And he's got that look, and we've all had that look, that almost like longing, and when people are, when people pass you and you're sitting in front of your bivvy, searching that water, they say, "How you got anything doing or anything going on?" No, nothing going on. What have you not caught anything? I'm like, no, not today. So we started to discuss it, and I tried to explain to them, it's almost like that, it's the pursuit of this girl who, doesn't know you're alive. It's that girl that you've always fancied, doesn't know you're alive. She doesn't feed, and she doesn't live where you live, and it's that unattainable thing. And regardless of what you catch, it's that look in Springgate's eyes, which would be a great line, that'd be a great line in a book, the look in Springgate's eyes. Somebody will plagiarize that.
Is this him with Mary?
No, it was the brace shot. I'm sure it was that brace shot from. Was it? Where was it now? He's one. He's got
the brace. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Was it Mary? Was it Mary and Mary's mate?
Yeah.
Yeah. It must have been. Yeah. And the look in his eyes. And he
Yeah.
hasn't finished. He had not finished. Unfinished, still unfinished bit. And we've all got unfinished business in carp fishing. Will
Yeah.
never end. It'll never stop. And that's
Yeah.
a good thing. That has to be a good thing.
Yeah, it's oh, you made me doubt myself. I'm 99% sure it's Mary and Mary's mate, the brace shot.
Well,
In fact, I know it is. It is. It
I
definitely
am
is.
surrounded by books here, and I should be able to pick one out, but I can't be bothered.
Yeah, it's one of those great shots.
It is. I'll be honest with you. I think. Do you know what? I think there's a couple of shots like that that are just like totally honest. I've got Paisley's big carp out. Oh, wait a minute. So where is that now? Hold on. Peter Springate. Oh, do I have to put some light on it? I'm going blind. So it's a 36.5. Is it Giovanni? I probably pronounced that wrong. And it's a 36.5 and a 38.5. Somebody will correct me on this. Giovanni, 1977? Yeah, 1977. And he's got that, he's looking down the way, but I've seen shots of him, he's got this look in his eyes. And that's catfishing for me. When you see Richie McDonald doing all these different things, that's not some of these posers now with their hair all shaved in at the back and, all that and smelling. And one of my pals got into catfishing. Sorry, tangent again.
Oh.
And he turned up one day and it was like an advert for Africa Lynx. I'm like, what are you doing? If I can smell you, the carp can smell you. It was just ridiculous. And his hair was all combed and, it was all like, he'd be definitely been on Instagram. Like, away.
I don't know. I'm not. Yeah, this to me the classic Springate shot is with Mary and Mary's mate.
It must be. I just remember that being in Big Carp. I'm going
to send it to you, and because I think there's confusion here somewhere. Can you view your messages now or not?
Yeah, I'll have it on my phone. Do you know what? There's so many iconic shots. You're probably right. Yeah. Hold on, just got a message. Yeah, do you know what? I'm not disagreeing with you, Sam. I'm just saying there's all these different shots.
Yeah, no, I don't doubt it. I'm trying to find the.
That's the Raspberry one. But there's one where he's looking at the camera. I can't remember whether it's that one or the Giovanni or he's probably caught a lot.
I'm sure. I'm trying to find the Giovanni one.
Yeah, and it's just he's got this look in his eyes, and that is catfishing.
Are you on about the one on his book cover?
Oh, right, hold on. Which one? That Carp Side of the Moon. Hold on. I'll find out.
Big Carp Legends.
Oh, Big Carp Legends. Hold on. Carp Side of the Moon. He's got that one right. Where was Big Carp Legends? Hold on.
Which I'm sure that's Giovanni. I could be wrong again. I'm sure people are screaming at this.
I'm surrounded. I'm hundreds of books on. Yeah, that's it. That's the Giovanni one, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's just got this faraway look in his eyes. And these are incredible carp, I mean, the Raspberry ones and these are just incredible looking carp, And carp anglers don't look like that anymore. Well, I do. I'm a scruffy kid, But they're also polished, I don't know. I suppose it's that pursuit. And I remember was he not living on like oats and powdered milk on Raspberry and just so he could stay out and
there's all kind of. I mean, yeah, he was a dedicated man. I mean, that's what you get from his writings. That he was everything was about him. Yeah, I think did he sell Hoovers or something?
Possibly. Yeah, I think there's something in there. I've read quite a bit about the stuff around Raspberry and all sorts of stuff. And when amazing. I mean, we've got bits of history in Scotland, but we're still making it. But we've not got anything like that yet. But like I say, there are 40-pounders caught. I meant to say, I've got some Ester. You've talked about Esterberry before. I've got some Esterberry if you want that.
Where have you got that from?
It's in my cupboard.
Yeah, but so I've got supposedly the original Esterberry, and it's no way near what it used to be. Not even close.
Is that a recent purchase, though?
Yeah.
Nah, you're not going to get that. I've got the original black top. Esterberry.
Yeah. Esterberry was a Campbell's flavour, wasn't it?
Yeah, rich one. It's around about the time of the tea,
Yeah, so Plantex bought it, didn't they? They bought out
That's right. Yeah, I
Brambles.
remember
So
during
if
our
you
correspondence, you
get
mentioned.
the Estaberry from Plantex now, it's nothing like the old Estaberry, unfortunately, because I love that flavor. Absolutely love that flavor. I did well on it. I'm sure I've spoken about this on the podcast before.
Yeah, you
Uh,
have. That's why I mentioned it. I mean, I remember I had two bottles and I dropped one
oh,
roundabout. So I went, oh, I better check out this Esterborough because I used it a long time ago, and I dropped one, and I was almost licking it off the floor
yeah.
of the dirty garage floor. But I think I've still got I don't know, some in a bottle. So, but you're welcome to it because you've always sent me little samples and stuff.
Not very kind, but I wouldn't use it to be honest because
Oh well.
it's just past its best. So
No,
you keep
I
it.
was gonna sell you it.
Well, you keep it because I wouldn't use it in a bait.
Well,
I'm
listen,
all about fresh. Fresh is I'm
I
obsessed
know,
with fresh. Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Thank
Well,
you
look,
anyway.
do you know what? The offer's there if you want to be influenced by it.
No, no, very very kind. But
No, not at all,
in
sir.
fact, I've got some Estaberry here, and I gave it to Pete years ago, and he's given it back to me.
I see.
But just for
I thought you were going
old
to say,
time's sake.
I thought you were going to say he sold it back to you.
No. Hey, was that your only question? Do you have anything else or?
Um, do you know anything I would have to ask? Because I would really try and work stuff out for myself. But anything I would have to ask would be to put, just how, you know, when you're putting these hook baits together, and I know they have been quite successful. The what you call Opti baits now? Is
Yeah,
it Opti baits you're calling
yeah.
yourself? Yeah. So is that a similar process? Do you have an end game that you're arriving at, or is it a case of these are the ingredients? Well, say for example, and I know you won't give too much away, but when it comes to your hook baits, are you using like a milk protein base? Are you incorporating something that's going to increase leakage, like I don't know, maybe some sort of rough bird food, or perhaps it's a fish meal on the go? To be honest, I haven't really looked at the bases of the
Yeah.
product.
So the existing range that are out at the moment, a lot of the leakage from that is going to be small molecules rather than your bigger solubles. Yes, there's high amounts of refined milks in there. I think that was one of your questions. See, I'm now
Yeah.
paranoid that I'm gonna skirt over something that you've said and like evade a question, but there's a lot of milks in there.
Do you know what, I'll send you a report of
Yeah, you do it. Yeah,
of your
breakdown
business
of
tonight.
which episodes I've missed. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll mark it for you as well.
Yeah. But yeah, of course, there's solubles in there. I mean, for me personally, I think you can't just bang some flavors and some organic acids and some amino acids into a simple pop-up base mix and expect it to catch. It will catch, of course. In my opinion, if it's comprised of good quality milks like that, that's really, really important. But obviously, it doesn't have a high percentage of soluble base mix ingredients for obvious reasons. It's a pop up, it needs to, stay intact,
Uh-huh.
and it needs to stay popped up. So, yes, whilst in the grand scheme of things, it is high, very high levels of refined milk proteins. That's obviously going to aid attraction, but most of the attraction are going to be smaller molecules that will obviously be soluble and leach out through the water column.
Okay.
Um, I've got some upcoming ones, which might even be out actually. Hopefully, they'll be out by the time this podcast goes live. They're a little bit different, more of a classic base mix with some refined milks, buoyant milks added, and some cork granules as well. Obviously, some albumin and oragel to help bind it up. They're
Uh-huh.
a little bit more kind of, I don't know, how would you describe that attraction? More like feed bait style attraction, if that makes sense.
Y-
Um,
yeah, I mean, there's ways you can clearly make a feed bait to kind of pop up,
yeah,
or you have the classic pop up, which is, we mentioned before, it has been a lure.
yeah.
Um, I would more. I've thought of another question for you actually, but I'd sort of tend to stay away from that type of lure thing because I want to kind of give them an experience and go back to the making it sing thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
But I see. What I would say is a good. You want a good quality pop up mix, um, but the amount that you can do with that, if it's a very very buoyant mix, the amount of different things that you can add that will complement each other it's sky's the limit. I mean, unfortunately, most companies, they're just going to add a bit of betaine, maybe a bit of citric acid, and a flavor and a sweetener. But there's so much more you can do to that, and because you can make it very, very buoyant, you can get away with adding heavier liquids. So I mean, I don't rule out those lure type hook baits, and plus the amount of fish I've caught on them.
Oh,
Couldn't rule it out.
absolutely. Um, I really have to kind of place my thoughts with the situations I'm fishing in,
Yeah.
and I'll be honest, I wouldn't want to. I don't like to use the word waste my time, but I want to give myself the best possible advantage with what I'm putting out on that hook bait,
Oh, of course.
rather than, and I would imagine most guys are doing that. But yeah, you're right. There's so much you can do with it, and why limit yourself just to, just following basic instructions? Okay, maybe start to learn a little bit about the trade and how to roll pop-ups, etc., or even just hook baits, and then start to experiment and then start to go on with this. So,
Mm.
does that then, and going back to my original question, does that dictate how you want it to end up? Like, and we could even, infer that there's a color involved in that as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you pushing all your component parts towards this finished product? Are you just thinking this looks as if it will go together, and then you have the product?
Um, no. So I mean, the ones that are out at the moment, so the warlocks, that's kind of new conception with new things that I've found, and that wizard flavor. The polar fruits is a combination that Pete's used for a long time, but obviously we've developed our versions of the flavors. Um, the tree fruit, again, that's an old recipe that I've done very, very well on, that I've kind of modernized and changed. So yeah, I kind of had them all in mind. The black bukus, it's our blackcurrant flavor, which sadly we don't sell now. I know you're aware of that. Um,
Oh yeah,
we,
yeah.
mm, we've added buku essential oil in. The reason, we just because we get so many messages about this, I'd want to just take the opportunity to say the reason we discontinued it, and I know everyone wants it, but it's just because we can't get enough buku regularly. I've actually got quite a bit of buku sitting in front of me now. Um, so I could release it again for a while, but I'm worried that the buku supply will dry up. I have to take it off again. People have been using it all year, and then it's just like it's creating this issue. So for now, certainly until things with the proper buku essential oil have calmed down, unfortunately, we're not
I mean, I
going to
suppose
release
you
that.
could, think about distributing it mainly to anglers in Scotland, the
You
northeast
said this
Scotland.
before, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I would keep that safe for you.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. Yeah, but so I mean, so obviously, I mean that flavor did so well, and it's so good. Obviously, I wanted to build a hook bait around that, which is why I did the black bukus. So that's different reason for that hook bait.
uh Well,
Uh,
I think what you're doing is you're offering, you're not just offering to the bait maker, which that's the flavor side of the business. You're offering for people who maybe don't have time to make baits, which I
yeah,
don't actually
and
believe in, and you're
yeah,
giving them that opportunity to use the stuff that the bait making guys can use.
I'm just honestly, I'm creating things that I use. Like so, I literally use our hook baits. I mean, it's difficult because then I've also got to test. So as I said, bringing out two new hook baits. Um, I've been testing those for God knows how long. Feels like forever. So I have to do that as well. But yeah, I want to create products that I will use. Um, so yeah,
Yeah,
does that answer your
I can
question? I
fully,
can't remember.
yeah, yeah, I can. I can't remember what I asked. I can fully. So as I only use my own stuff, and by that I don't mean I've not made any flavors like you have, but I'm using stuff that I have put together, and I want it to succeed, and that's a massive part. And you'll find a lot of guys are like that.
Yeah.
Other guys just want to hear that it's good, and that's fairly typical of modern society, and all sorts of things.
Mm.
Well, the question I thought about when you were talking about, putting all these ingredients together is, have you found anything, and this may help people who are listening, have you found anything that almost like inhibits the rolling of pop-ups? Because pop-ups kind of be a wee bit temperamental at times. Now, whether that's down to how they come to us, as a pre-made base mix, or something can react and not binds. Do you know what I'm saying there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Is there anything
definitely.
particular you found, because sometimes you go, oh, why has that happened? It was fine the last time. And then you've got to tinker with it and, all that.
Yeah, had quite a few issues with our polar fruit pop-ups because there's something that goes in that hook bait. You wouldn't realize this from looking at it, but it's actually jet black, and it goes in fairly high concentrations as well. So obviously I have to, because I want those to be white, I have to balance that out with a lot of white dye, titanium dioxide.
Yeah, yeah.
That
That's good. It's good stuff, that. It's really good stuff.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but I mean, that will definitely affect the rollability, the bindability. If I don't think that's a word, but that'll affect your roll in your hook bait. Yeah, other things. Yeah, I mean, no, I'm using high grade Manuka honey in a couple of them. You can definitely overdo that. That'll also affect the buoyancy. Everything that you add will affect things to a degree. It's just how much you add them in. Obviously, something. I mean, we add organic acids that they're going to cook the eggs. You have to be careful how you add them.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of things have an effect or another. You can add certain organic acids. If you want to use them, you can add them to an oil-based flavor. You're going to get away with it a little bit more than you would do if it was with, say, an EA-based flavor.
Uh-huh.
Um, but yeah, I mean, everything is always. But I mean, but to be fair, you can tweak things accordingly, can't you? So you don't have to
Yeah,
have the same base mix for all of your pop-ups. If
yeah,
you've got to use a
definitely.
lot of titanium dioxide, you can add a little bit of, extra something to help with the binding.
Yeah, I was just thinking of somebody who's maybe tried pop-ups and it's just gone a bit wrong, and then they maybe don't have the experience to tinker and say, okay, I can do this, and
Um,
this will make it change.
I
Because
mean,
it's all fine. It's all fine us saying, okay, well, you can just play around with your pop-up mix, and you can add maybe like say the whey gel or maybe the albumin, and then you can just throw it in it. But that's not it's not the case. I mean, often too much dye. If you want something
yeah,
that's
yeah,
ultra bright, too much dye, that's an absolute killer at times.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. But I mean, my advice to people that want to get into rolling their own pop-ups, you just buy a ready-made base mix.
Yeah.
Polaris, that's it's not the best mix around, but it's user friendly. The British Aquafeeds mix
Yeah,
is
that's decent.
yeah,
I must admit that is decent.
yeah, a lot of people like that. I mean, take your pick. There's a lot around. Shillam, I believe, have quite a good mix. I believe Trent Bates have quite a good mix as well.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
just get a mix that's been put together, properly, and that's user friendly, and yeah, just experiment. It's
Mhm.
yeah,
I'll be honest. I prefer cork balls.
yeah,
I
yeah,
prefer putting cork balls together in pop-up mixes, and I think it's quite rare for me to use use a pop-up mix. I did use it with one of your flavors over the winter, um, and but cork balls all the time because you can basically use a version, almost like a a hardened version of your base mix
of course, yeah,
in the cork ball, and I'm producing them. And another thing is it's not affected so much by dye. And that's an art form in itself. And I'm seeing myself using different sizes of cork balls to induce different buoyancies and make it do what I want to do. Sometimes you want that for, you want to. I don't know how people would want to keep it there for like 3 days in a row. That's pretty much confident.
yeah.
But
I used to use a lot. I mean, there's obviously an issue with the supply. There's a massive supply issue with cork balls at the minute, which is a bit of a bastard. Um, but yeah, I mean, for sure, I used to use a lot of cork balls. For now though, I'd go cork granules for sure.
would you? It's not. I mean, I've
100%.
got them. I've got them, but it's
100%.
not a really. Yeah, it's not really a thing. I think one of the problems with cork granules is that if you glug them, it can completely affect the buoyancy. You could make these, you could have them balanced, with the cork, the percentage of cork granules you put in, and then okay, you maybe want to give a bit of glug, or people like to enhance things and all sorts of stuff.
Mm.
That can absolutely ruin the buoyancy of them. And I say
Yeah, I
that from
mean,
past experience.
yeah, quite possibly. I mean, the
But with
ones I'm
cork
using,
balls, that's
I'm adding
different.
in. Yeah, Yeah, but I mean, again, it comes to your base. If you're adding in very light ingredients, um,
Yeah, I
you
suppose
certainly
there is
have.
that as well.
I don't have an issue. I really, really don't.
Okay.
Obviously, you need to get the binders right to be able to use enough cork granules for it to
Yeah.
be buoyant enough.
But also
Absolutely.
without creating a locked unit. It's that balance, isn't
Of
it?
course, yeah, oh yeah, it's a balance. It's a bit of a science or an art. I don't know which. Probably a bit of both. But yeah, of course,
Alchemy.
yeah,
Maybe it's alchemy, you know.
alchemy, of course, yeah, yeah. I mean, you can bind it all up so it's not an issue, and use shed loads of cork granules. But like you say, it's just going to be this kind of inert ball that isn't letting out all of those expensive ingredients or intricate ingredients that you put in.
Hmm.
It's taken me a long time to get it right. Using very high levels of GLM in one of them, and like such an expensive ingredient. You know,
It
you don't
is,
want to
isn't
be
it?
inhibiting the usage of that. So
Well,
yeah,
that's where the balance is, because you'd be counteracting all it is an expensive purchase,
mm.
the GLM, and full fat's beautiful stuff,
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
that's that's another one. My son comes in, I go, have a smell of that one. Oh, what do you think? Have a taste of that.
Varies so much. It really does. Even like full fat between different ones. But yeah, a proper full fat GLM. It's hard to beat that.
Yeah, I'm hearing that. I'm hearing that about liver powder as well. The beef liver. There's more and more companies are producing the beef liver, and a few of my friends have been buying, bits and bobs for hook baits, etc., and they're finding
Yeah.
various quality things. So it definitely
Unfortunately,
pushes.
you can't use beef liver in feed for carp.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
that's what I said. This is for hook baits,
yeah,
etc.
of course, yeah. Otherwise, I'd be doing some. Yes, for hook baits, yeah, you can. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I wouldn't be advocating that. So.
Of course, no, I didn't mean it to sound like that, but yeah, I mean, yes, it varies a lot. I mean, there's not much of it around.
No, but I have noticed that a few of the companies now are starting to produce, a beef liver. Or I certainly advertise it, But again, various qualities.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Mm.
Um, I mean, some livers are used. I think some of them are okay, and other times, yeah, I think that's the beauty of bait makers in general. Some people, will swear by betaine.
Yep.
I don't bother with it. I've
No.
got it sitting, but I won't bother with it. I've got two types sitting, but I won't bother. But I know it's contained in other things, so I don't think I really need it. And you know, I can catch fish without it. So, and that's just all. It's all part of the fun.
Exactly. Personal preference. I'm the same with betaine. Take it or leave it. Citric acid as well. Everyone freaking raves about it. I'm not saying it's not good, but I think it's overrated. I think there's better things out there. But
Yeah, yeah.
you find what works, what you're confident in, and a lot of it, it's just being confident in what you're doing, so you can go out and actually angle, isn't it?
Uh-huh. Well, that's you mentioned the testing of hook baits, and I do tend to speak about bait a lot with people when I'm on the bank, and because they'll produce this bag of the only thing I can liken them to is I don't know if you ever got them down south, but you used to get this box of thing called fireballs or aniseed balls, and they were just these perfectly round, hardest ball sweets in the world. Did you ever get that down your
Yeah,
way?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And they'll produce this bag of these round balls, and I'm saying, oh, they're nice. Not really. I said, no, I just look, these are mine. And my baits are all different shapes and sizes because, I've just been hammering them through, running them through not through the, what's it called, the tables, just doing all this. And I said, look, these are absolutely, theirs are solid. And mine are soft. And I've said, it's,
I like
I,
soft bait as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But the point I was going to make is they'll say, "Oh, do you know what? I really fancied making my own bait." And I said, "Well, there is that." And I said, "But this is," and I explained to them the process I have to go through just to make the bait. And I said, "Now I've got to sit behind my rods, and with
Yeah.
the best will in the world, and a mascot behind the middle rod called Kev. Um, I have to hope and pray that my knowledge." my experience in bait making has got me, that I can be confident with this bait. Whereas you're buying these little hard aniseed balls in a bag, which, I think I'd just be putting them straight in the bin. Perfectly round, Sam. I can't get baits perfectly round because of what I'm using in my mix.
Yeah.
Because and I was using baits at the weekend there, and they were no more round than my mug there. They were just all over the place. But it's because of the type of bait. Well, luckily I was putting them out by boat some, and I'd made some for a different baiting situation on the other rod. That was using some of your wizard on a bait I call the Magus, which is it's quite an interesting bait. And I've tried to put some ingredients together to complement your wizard, which is why I asked in the first place. So, but the one I'm using, it's quite a really soft bait, and I'd made the mix too soft, but I just wanted it made. I've got one of your flavors in there. That's quite an interesting bait. It's got whole sorts of stuff, but round, and even baits for the stick round.
It's difficult. It's difficult.
But I don't know why.
It's unnecessary though. You do not need a perfectly round bait.
Yeah, but that's my.
Better off without it, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, Oh yeah. I've been doing a lot of cubing. I've been a lot of cube baits and paint, and different painting. No, I'm trying not to say too much. But you know what it's like. I'm into doing all sorts of stuff, and I don't know. I might actually. Do you know what, Sam? Because I think I've still got your address. I might send you some things that I do, and you can try them out for me. But you're not allowed to talk about them. It's a bit like Fight Club, okay?
Yeah, first rule of fight. Yeah, first rule of.
Actually, I'll give you a laugh. The kids at school believe I run Fight Club in the school.
They do what? Sorry.
They believe I run a fight club in the school.
No way.
Yep. And there's a few members of staff, and they go, "Who's in Fight Club?" I says, "Look, I can only tell you this. There's 2 rules." What are the rules, Mr. McNeil? Well, you can't talk about. What's the second rule? And that's it. So I might send you some stuff, Sam.
By all means.
Because you know what? I'll be honest with you. You have been generous, and you didn't know me from Pete Springate.
No.
and you were good enough to send me some stuff. So I might send you some stuff just to see, just to see what you think.
No, okay. You're welcome, man. You're very passionate about your bait, that's for sure, and you know your stuff. So, no, don't mention it. You don't owe me anything, honestly.
No, I'm going to send you some stuff. I just want to see your reaction.
Go for it. Okay. I'll be interested to have a look at it.
But you have to on air. You have to tell me what are the rules.
The rules are, number one rule is I do not talk about the bait.
You don't talk about it.
Yeah, I do not talk about it. No.
All right. Okay.
You confirm or deny.
Absolutely brilliant.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Sounds good. All right, let's wrap it up. Anything you wanted to say before we?
That's it. Do you know what? It's actually it's been nice to be involved in something that I've been a fan of for quite a while.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Not that I've been a fan of you, no offense, but it's nice to have someone else on the show. And
I always feel I'm pestering you when I'm, because sometimes you can.
Not at all.
Sometimes you can be quite rude.
Can I?
Honestly, I'm only winding you up. I was going to ask you, can you do a Scottish accent?
Oh, I don't even know if I can.
That was terrible. That was
terrible.
That was almost like "See You, Jimmy" from Russ.
Oh, I was hoping that would wow you. No, then the answer's no.
All right, okay, that's fine. Can you do a Sean Connery?
I'm not sure that I can.
It's just terrible.
The answers. Yeah.
Absolutely terrible. Yeah. But listen, Joe, I've thoroughly enjoyed it because I really love talking about bait, and I think this is the ideal platform for. To get supposed to get involved in, and to without actually giving anything away. Because if I eventually sit with Notepad, there isn't a lot given away, and that's not a bad thing. Yeah. Because it makes you start to think and research. Because if you are given everything, if anglers are given everything, they become complacent and lazy, and they won't search it out. In the spirit of where I came from in angling was I made my own bank sticks. You know, this is sounding like a sad story now, but before I was a teacher, I was a metal worker, and I used to work, you know, be in a workshop, and you know, made all sorts of stuff out of metal. And you know, my first bank sticks were, you know, made by myself, which are pretty shocking. I don't know where they are now, hopefully scrapped. But and that's it. And there's that spirit of, you know, making things, and I'm still making stuff, you know, and I think that's lost. So if everything's handed on a plate,
Exactly. Yeah.
you
You don't progress.
stagnate. You know, you stagnate as an angler. You stop thinking. And I'll be honest with you, I'd party to some guys. You know, I'm very lucky to know some guys who are forward thinkers. You'll know some yourself, and some of the people you've had on these podcasts have been amazing. You know, they're really forward thinkers. They're trying to cause solutions. Sorry, not cause solutions. They're trying to you know, create solutions for, you know, something they want to overcome, but not end there. It's again, you know, Peter Springgate's eyes. It's almost like it never ends. You know, it never ends. And I like meeting people like that. You know, they're never going to stop. They don't just compromise. They don't just try another bag off the shelf.
Yeah.
And I think you guys foster that. You know, and to be honest, I haven't heard many podcasts. You know, I don't upset you.
There's some good podcasts out there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there are, but you know, I don't really have much time. But I do like, you know, I don't want to say excited, but I kind of do. I get excited. You know, when that wee icon comes up on Instagram, and you think, "Here we go. Here's another podcast."
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's just like, what's he on about now? You know, it's like I'm just hoping. Okay, when's the next podcast coming?
Yeah.
You know, and it's that, and you will get a lot of that. And I understand you're busy, and you know, I think you've built up a good following. You know, people who want to listen to this sort of stuff.
Yeah, we got some hardcore listeners. Yeah,
and the one
you're going to be on the next one that goes live. How about that?
Crikey!
I know.
Do you think people want to listen to the sort of stuff I come out with?
Yeah, I'm sure they will. I have no idea. I mean, I don't know if people will listen to just me on my own, but I'm sure someone will.
Well, do you think there's a following for Pete? You know, like an underground following.
Oh God, yeah. Oh yeah.
You think they've got T-shirts and?
I reckon Pete's the favourite for sure.
You think?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But he's like the straight man. I don't mean anything. I'm not implying anything, Sam. I just mean he's like the Ernie Wise to your Eric Markham.
I don't know who they are, but yeah, he's very straight.
Have you never had the Markham and Wise?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right. Well, Eric. No, wait a minute. Eric Markham. That's you. You're the kind of like the comedy guy. You know, the one that pushes that a wee bit in. And he was like, Peter probably hate me for this. He was like the Ernie Wise, the straight man. You know, he set up the jokes and kept order. He's the super ego to your Ed. You know, putting in psychological terms. You know, that sort of stuff. Yeah. But yeah, I think people enjoy it because it's ordinary anglers who are just like them.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and we could associate with you guys. You know, I mean, when do you know what, the best thing is it's when it goes wrong or when you forget about what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
we leave it in as well.
It's like, yeah, it's like listening. It's like listening to somebody, you know, being, you know, like almost like recording somebody sitting in front of the bivvy talking about a whole load of nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there's no sides to it. You're not trying to do anything that, you know, you're not trying to promote anything. There's no hidden agenda. You know, it's almost like, well, we do these flavors, but if you want to buy them, you can buy them. And if you don't, well, you know, we're okay with that. We're still going to do them anyway.
Of course, yeah.
It's great, you know. Ghost stories would be good.
You're very kind. I appreciate your words. Ghost stories. Yeah, well, we did one. We did an episode like that.
What was that? Was that the one about the rabbits on the path? Was that one? Was that
rabbits?
Was it not rabbits? Do you know your memory is terrible?
I remember.
I know more about your podcast than you do. You
probably do. You probably do. Yeah, I think it was. It was a Halloween special. Not last year.
That's right. I
remember it now. Before. Yeah, it's old.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, ghost stories would be quite nice and get people to follow for their ghost stories.
There's a great thread on the Carp forum about ghost stories, isn't it? Have you looked at the Carp forum?
Yeah, I dabble. I don't want my life consumed, but I
Yeah,
prefer.
I know.
I prefer. I go up to my garage where I get peace, and I put on. I've got my bait making soundtrack, so it's usually like Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, and I put that on. I always start off with the same song, and I make bait to that and sing along, and that's what I do, and that's kind of my happiness, and try to cut down on screen time, or if there's a new podcast comes out, I'll put that on, or something like that. But yeah, generally I come up here and look at some books, or I'm tinkering, making bait, or I'm making some other stuff, or doing what I do, yeah, and it's that sort of thing. It's it's nice. But yeah, I remember there was a ghost story one on, I think it was on maybe the old school, the old school cat one on Facebook. Old school cat.
Oh, the group.
Yeah, old school campers. I'm sure there was a ghost story one, and this guy had put up photographs, and there's this thing standing in the background. Oh, incredible!
Is this the old school Carp Society group?
Yeah, that's right. I think there's a guy called Paul Clark that runs it. Paul, really nice. I've corresponded with him as well. Do you know what? Seafood carpfish. I've met some maybe never meet them, but I've corresponded with some wonderful guys out there. I talked to a guy called Jim. I think you spoke to Jim quite a lot about bait. Jim lives in Cambridgeshire. About bait.
Right.
Jim Watcher.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Sorry, Jim. This old school card group thing, and this guy put up the photographs, and there was nobody there, but this guy appeared in the photograph. This thing. Oh, incredible! Love that sort of stuff.
I'll have to try and find that.
Yeah, but you don't want to see that before you go to a remote location on your own.
What was the post if people want to find that? Because we'll get messages about this.
Oh, do you know what? I would have to look for it. It was just something that I remembered, but they were putting up all sorts of different stories, and it's the usual one. I came out with Bivy, and there was an old guy standing there, so we spoke about ages about how the lake was formed, and I turned around and he was gone. It was one of these things, and you think, oh, it's that sort of stuff you get. I mean, I think all I've had is I woke up a few times during the night and felt somebody pushing down onto my sleeping bag, and I could not move.
Yeah, that's like a scientific, phenomena, isn't it?
Yeah, it's sleep paralysis. And what happens? Paralysis. It's something. We've gone full circle. I'm back to school psychology now. What happens when we move into REM sleep, when most of our dreaming is done, our muscles paralyze, and that's to stop us acting out. Like say you're dreaming that you can fly.
Of course, yeah,
that's the safe. So it's a form of sleep paralysis as well. But I've woke up and I know I've been conscious, but I felt something pushing down on me. And I've also kind of been conscious that my bed chair's pushed all the way forward. I think I must have been dreaming that. But I haven't really, and I don't want any paranormal experiences, I really don't want that. Because I'm mostly out on my own, away out in the wilds,
Of course,
where who knows?
Big locks chasing those monsters.
When who knows? And even some little locks, we've got some beautiful locks that we fish. But not enough of them, and it's a political thing. It's just down to Scottish anglers recognising the value of carp and coarse fishing in general. There's a massive following in Scotland. There's a lot of interest in it. Whereas at one point you would know most carp anglers in Scotland, but not now. It is definitely getting bigger. Yeah, it's definitely, and then it isn't. It's strange. Could be a lot of interest over lockdown. We had people who had never fished for carp wanting to come and fish our waters.
Yes,
it's really, I fancy it. And they've been watching the TV. Carp fishing on it. Who'd have thought, Sam?
I know.
Carp fishing would have been on Saturday night TV.
Incredible.
I know it's amazing. But people saying that now, they come and fish one of our waters.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing.
And we have lovely waters, and they're there for the taking, but they're highly challenging. And and they think it's I'm just going to cast out one of these baits and one of these round things, and I'll just be laughing, and a bucket of water will be thrown on me for my personal best. It's nothing like it's nothing like that. No. Do you know what they should show on Saturday night? Peter Springgate's eyes.
Yeah, hey, there we go. Back to the eyes. That's what it's all about.
Listen, Sam, thank you very much. I have thoroughly
You're
enjoyed
welcome.
myself. And do you know what? It's lovely to speak to you at last,
It's
actually.
good to chat
You know,
to
I'm
you.
not
Yeah,
a
we
guru.
messaged numerous
Yeah,
times,
I
haven't
know.
we?
I will be back to corresponding with you soon, okay?
No doubt. Yeah, we'll
And,
chat soon.
and you take
Take it
care.
easy, buddy.
I look forward to the podcast. And I might tell you that joke one day about Sean Phillips.
Yeah, you do that.
Okay.
Take
Right.
care, buddy.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.
Bye. Good
Bye.
night.